Chapter 1, Julian, no matter what, the baby in Seraphina Fletcher's belly is your flesh and blood. Don't you feel anything at all? You really had her get rid of it just like that? Didn't the doctor say it was a healthy pair of boy-girl twins? Letting them die in the womb like that? Honestly, it's a bit of a shame. Seraphina Fletcher happened to pass by the private dining room and overheard the conversation inside. Her body froze, and she stared in disbelief at the slightly ajar door. Julian Harrington sat at the head of the table, casually holding a cigarette, a look of indifference on his face. Who cares if she has my child? I don't even love her. If my family hadn't forced me into this arranged marriage with her, I wouldn't have settled. The babies are gone, so be it. But Lily has been diagnosed with leukemia and needs a bone marrow transplant. Only Seraphina is a match. A pregnant woman can't donate, so I had no choice but to find a way for Seraphina to terminate the pregnancy. A wave of clamor erupted in the room. No one seemed to think there was anything wrong with Julian's words. True love, if Lily knew, she'd be moved to tears. Speaking of which, Seraphina Fletcher kind of deserved it. If she hadn't desperately clung to Julian and married him, he would have definitely married Lily. This is her karma. Julian didn't speak, but his eyes seemed momentarily lost. After a while, he said, "Don't go blabbing in front of Lily. She's always been kind and soft-hearted. If she knew about this, she'd probably feel guilty and refuse the surgery." Someone hesitated before speaking. What if Seraphina Fletcher figures out something's wrong and refuses to donate marrow to Lily? Julian smirked, his eyes filled with disdain. She won't find out. Just say a few nice words to coax her, have my assistant buy her an expensive gift, and she'll agree to anything. No one noticed Seraphina standing just outside the door, her face utterly drained of color. Just this morning, she had terminated the pregnancy. The prenatal checkup showed the fetuses had congenital deformities due to medication. They were already stillborn. She needed to rest after the procedure. Afraid she wouldn't have the energy to prepare Julian's meals, she had come to this restaurant he liked, intending to order his meals for the next week to be delivered to his office. She never expected to hear something like this. When Seraphina first found out she was pregnant, she was overjoyed and immediately told Julian. He seemed stunned at the time, but she thought he was just surprised and couldn't believe it. They had been married for 5 years without children. After confirming the pregnancy, she spent every day thinking about how to ensure the baby's safe birth and upbringing, and the father of her children was plotting to kill them. An intense pain surged from her heart, nearly drowning Seraphina. After a long moment, she walked out of the restaurant, her pale face a mask as she drove home. The large villa was deathly silent. Julian disliked having strangers around, so she had done all the housework during their marriage. Knowing she was going to terminate the pregnancy, he hadn't even considered hiring someone to care for her. But when he learned Liliana Fletcher had leukemia and was returning to the country for treatment, he personally picked her up from the airport, arranged the best medical team for 24-hour care, and visited her daily himself. They were both daughters of the Fletcher family, both his childhood friends, yet the difference in treatment was so stark. But she had chosen to turn a deaf ear, always holding onto hope for him. Now, the final straw had broken her. There was no reason to stay anymore. Seraphina went upstairs and opened the safe she had always guarded carefully. Inside were trivial items, from a hastily scribbled greeting card to an expensive blue diamond necklace, all gifts from Julian. There was also a photo album and a diary. Throughout their marriage, he hadn't treated her well, but he had been generous. On special occasions, she would receive jewelry from him. A slightly old-fashioned jade brooch, an ostentatiously designed diamond necklace, and various earrings, none costing less than 6 figures in USD. But when she first married Julian, she didn't even have pierced ears. She got them pierced specifically because of his gifts. Before, she treasured these gifts like precious jewels, carefully storing them away, rarely willing to wear them. Now, thinking back, they were probably just items his assistant was casually told to prepare, devoid of any genuine feeling. Seraphina called a familiar charity organization and asked them to come pick up the items. Then, she retrieved a diagnostic report from the very bottom of the safe. Name: Julian Harrington. Age: diagnosis: oligospermia, congenital developmental abnormality. This was their premarital checkup report, which she had hidden for 5 years. For 5 years, both sets of parents had pressured them endlessly about having children. She always claimed the problem was with her body, never revealing Julian's infertility. She had secretly consulted about IVF possibilities, but every doctor said the chances were slim. The twins Julian had personally killed might have been his only biological children in this lifetime. But it didn't matter anymore. It was all his choice. He cared more about his white moonlight's life. She couldn't stop him. Seraphina found the gift she had originally planned to give him on their wedding anniversary next month. She placed the report inside the gift box, putting the watch that was originally inside with the items intended for donation. Then she went to the study and printed out a divorce application. After finishing all this, she called the professor she studied under during her graduate studies. "Professor Albright, are you still looking for people for that new cancer drug research project you mentioned? I'd like to join." Julian returned home around dinner time. As he entered, the staff from the charity organization had just finished inventorying the luxury items. Seraphina took the list, signed it, and watched the staff leave with the boxes. Julian frowned slightly. Recognizing one item as a gift he'd had his assistant prepare for Seraphina not long ago. Didn't she used to treasure these things like gold? He felt inexplicably uneasy. Looking at Seraphina's indifferent face, he asked, almost involuntarily, why the sudden decision to donate them? Seraphina hadn't expected him to ask. She replied calmly, "It's nothing, just accumulating good karma for the children who passed away." Julian's lips tightened, his expression suddenly awkward. After a moment, he said, "Doing good deeds can also accumulate good karma for the children. You were pregnant before and couldn't donate marrow to Lily. Now that the children are gone, you can conveniently go donate." His tone was matter-of-fact, showing no trace of guilt towards the children. Seraphina managed a small smile. Looking at his cold face, she couldn't help asking, "In your heart, is Liliana Fletcher more important than our children?" Julian's brow furrowed tightly. "What do you mean by that?" His voice was somewhat strained, revealing a hint of guilt. Seraphina's tone was detached. "Nothing, just asking. Asking why the father of my children could be thinking about saving someone else's life when he just lost his own flesh and blood." Julian could hear the sarcasm in her tone and clenched his fists. "Seraphina Fletcher, what are you stirring up now? Losing the children means we can always have more Lily. Is your sister, are you just going to watch her die? You've already taken so much from her, why is Lily so kind, while you, her sister, can be so selfish and vicious?" Chapter 2, Seraphina quirked her lip. "What did I take? Did I take you?" Julian hadn't expected her directness, his expression hardening further. "Seraphina Fletcher, don't push it since you know it yourself. Don't you feel even a shred of guilt towards Lily?" A self-mocking glint flashed in Seraphina's eyes. It was clearly Liliana, who didn't want to marry him and went abroad. Yet in Julian's eyes, she had stolen the engagement meant for Liliana. No matter how she explained, he never believed her. Now, Seraphina couldn't be bothered to explain anymore. "If you insist on thinking that way, there's nothing I can do." She stood up and went upstairs, placing the divorce agreement on the table. "I won't donate the marrow. Your white moonlight won't die either. I wish you two a long and happy life together. When you have time, let's get the divorce finalized. It'll save you the trouble of always thinking I came between you two and stole you from her." Julian stared at the document on the table, his face growing increasingly dark. "Seraphina Fletcher, have you lost your mind? There's a limit to throwing tantrums. I understand you're upset about losing the children, and I will compensate you. I'll give you another child in the future. Your position as Mrs. Harrington won't change. Why must you target Lily?" Seraphina paused mid-step. "Give her another child?" Such a casual tone, as if her being able to conceive his child was his charity and blessing. She was more curious about what his expression would be when he saw that diagnostic report. She ignored Julian and went straight upstairs to pack her things, heading for the door. Julian gritted his teeth and grabbed her wrist. "Are you sure you want to divorce me? If you walk out this door today, there's no turning back." Seraphina pushed his hand away, her attitude cold. "Julian Harrington, the only thing I regret is marrying you." She left without a trace of lingering attachment. Behind her, Julian's eyes burned with cold anger. He didn't believe Seraphina was truly willing to divorce. She had loved him for so many years, used every trick in the book to marry him. How could she possibly let go? It was all just throwing a fit, trying to prevent Lily from getting better. If he gave in so quickly, she would only become more outrageous later. Having convinced himself of this, Julian didn't chase after her. He slammed the door shut heavily. He'd see just how far she could take this tantrum. Going upstairs to his room, he washed up and went straight to bed, not noticing the safe door was slightly ajar, with a folded diagnostic report lying inside. Seraphina found a hotel to stay in temporarily. The next morning, she headed to Concord Medical College, where Professor Albright was based. She had studied clinical medicine as an undergraduate and switched to pharmacology under Professor Albright during her graduate studies. Her professor had valued her potential, but she had been forced to abandon her studies due to the arranged marriage, becoming a housewife who managed the household as per the Harrington family's expectations. Yesterday, she and Professor Albright had arranged to meet today over the phone. From now on, she wouldn't have to live for others. She could focus on the path she loved. In the office, Professor Albright chatted with her for a bit before asking seriously, "Seraphina, if you've really decided to come back, I welcome you wholeheartedly. However, resources here are limited. Next month, our entire team will be going to the US to continue research. We won't be back for at least 5 years. I saw on your social media earlier that you were pregnant. Does your husband agree to this?" Seraphina lowered her gaze. "The baby was lost due to complications. He and I are planning to divorce. Going abroad for a change of scenery would be the best thing for me right now." Professor Albright was taken aback, quickly apologized, and comforted her for a moment before saying, "In that case, I'll submit your documents. Get your visa sorted out as soon as possible. We'll all head over together on the 1st of next month." Seraphina sincerely thanked her professor, handed over her documents and application form, and turned to leave the office. But unexpectedly, as she was about to go downstairs, a cold voice came from behind her. "Seraphina Fletcher." Seraphina turned around to see her mother, Leukemia Fletcher, standing behind her with a grim face. "You asked Julian for a divorce." Seraphina pressed her lips together, finally replying after a moment, "Yes. You wretched girl who told you to cause trouble?" Eleanor's face was cold with anger. "The marriage alliance between our families is crucial. Is this something you can treat like a childish tantrum and decide on a whim? Your own body couldn't even manage to conceive for years, and when you finally did, you couldn't even keep the baby. Now you have the audacity to ask Julian for a divorce. You should be grateful he hasn't thrown you out. Can't you learn to be sensible like Lily? He was being kind, trying to ease the tension between you sisters by asking you to donate marrow, and you make such a huge fuss over this trivial matter. You're utterly disgraceful. You're the older sister. Saving your sister is what you should do. Come back with me right now, apologize to Julian, and then donate the bone marrow to your sister." Seraphina unconsciously clenched her fists. She and Liliana were twins, but growing up, her parents had always favored Liliana. Liliana was frail but had a sweet disposition, knew how to charm people, and was much more likable than the quieter Seraphina. Even Liliana's frailty since childhood was joked about at home, suggesting Seraphina had stolen Liliana's nutrients in the womb, forcing her to always yield to her sister. But Seraphina never thought her mother, knowing she had just suffered the pain of a miscarriage, would say such things. Her mother didn't care if she was sad, didn't care about her physical recovery after the miscarriage, only felt she shouldn't anger Julian Harrington and, more importantly, shouldn't refuse to donate marrow to Liliana Fletcher. But the one originally scheduled for the arranged marriage was your sensible Liliana. Seraphina met her gaze calmly. "If she hadn't run away from the wedding, this crucial alliance wouldn't have fallen to me, would it?" The marriage alliance was initially set for Liliana, but nearing the wedding date, she suddenly declared she didn't want to be tied down by marriage and secretly went abroad. The family forced Seraphina into the marriage to cover it up, even letting Julian misunderstand that she had schemed to steal the engagement, forcing a heartbroken Liliana to leave the country. She had endured so much, yet in the end, it seemed everything was still her fault. Eleanor froze, her face instantly turning furious. "Shut up! How dare you talk back when your mother is disciplining you? Lily is different from you. She's been clever since childhood. Going abroad was for advanced studies. You'll never amount to anything anyway. Marrying into the Harrington family to become a wealthy wife. Did the family treat you unfairly? I don't want to waste time with you." Either do as I say, or from now on, you have absolutely no connection to the Fletcher family." Seraphina quirked her lips, her smile even more self-deprecating. In her mother's eyes, Liliana was always right. Saying such things was just humiliating herself. "If you don't think so, then fine." She spoke softly. "In your eyes, I'm the disgraceful daughter. Then you can just have Liliana as your only child from now on. I won't come home and be an eyesore anymore." Chapter 3, Eleanor stood frozen, utterly unable to believe those words came from Seraphina Fletcher. How dare she? A wooden-headed girl who only knew how to bury her head in books, lacking her sister's intelligence and grace. Without the Fletcher family, divorced from Julian, could she even survive out there? "Seraphina Fletcher, are you really going to be this stubborn and foolish?" She snapped sharply. "I will strip you of your inheritance rights, take back the dividends under your name from now on, don't even think about enjoying any benefit from this family. Without the Fletchers and the Harringtons, you are nothing." Seraphina turned her head away, no longer in the mood to continue the conversation. Her mother had probably forgot that she used to be far more outstanding than Liliana. When they were children, she was the best dancer, she was the most skilled pianist. But the frail Liliana would cry, express envy for her sister, and Seraphina would be forced to hide her talents and yield to her. "Fine. Do whatever you want. Goodbye." She strode towards the elevator, never looking back. Since she had decided to leave, she wouldn't have any relationship with her family anymore anyway. But just as she reached the ground floor, she saw a familiar Maybach slowly drive in. It was Julian's car. The door opened, and he emerged from the driver's seat in a suit. Then he opened the passenger door, gently helping Liliana Fletcher out. "It's chilly today, keep your coat on properly. After the checkup, I'll take you to try that new private kitchen restaurant." His face showed a concern Seraphina rarely saw as he carefully adjusted Liliana's scarf and coat. "Don't be afraid. I've already found a matching bone marrow donor for you. You'll get better soon." Liliana smiled brightly at him. "All right, Julian, I'm not a glass doll. I'll be fine. Even if I can't be cured, having you and Mom and Dad by my side before I pass away makes me very happy. If I could just see sister's baby born, I'd have no regrets." Julian's expression seemed to stiffen for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure and grasped her hand. "Don't talk nonsense. I won't let anything happen to you." They walked side by side towards the hospital entrance, looking intimately close. If this were before, Seraphina would probably feel heartbroken. But now, her heart felt remarkably calm. Something that never belonged to her shouldn't have been forced from the start, nor should she have ever thought she could melt that heart of stone. She lowered her head, intending to leave, but Liliana spotted her. "Sister, what are you doing here? Are you here for a prenatal checkup?" "Coincidentally, Mom and I are here for a checkup today too." Her eyes curved into crescents as she stepped forward, intending to link arms with Seraphina. "How's the baby? I heard the probability of having boy-girl twins is very low." "Sister, you didn't get pregnant for so long, and suddenly having twins, you must be very happy, right?" Julian froze, clearly not expecting her to be here. Hearing Liliana's question, he shot Seraphina a warning glare and quickly interjected. "The babies are fine, don't worry. Your health is more important." Seraphina read his intention. He was afraid of upsetting Liliana and didn't want her to reveal the miscarriage. "My babies are dead, congenital deformities caused by medication." Seraphina curled her lips into a smile, speaking word by word. "But I didn't take any medication during my pregnancy. Isn't that strange?" Liliana's expression instantly stiffened. Seraphina looked at her coldly, a chill flashing in her eyes. If she hadn't accidentally seen Liliana's test report before, she would have, like always, thought Liliana was just showing concern, concealed the matter as Julian wished, and licked her wounds in private. But she had seen it. The data on that test report didn't match the results at all. It could only fool a layman. Liliana looked frail, but she never had the fever, oral and pulmonary infections, joint pain, or bleeding characteristic of leukemia patients. Yet Julian, without a shred of suspicion about why a leukemia patient undergoing chemotherapy wasn't losing hair or weight, had used their children's lives in a self-righteous attempt to save her. "Seraphina Fletcher," Julian stepped forward, grabbing Seraphina's wrist, his eyes as cold as ice. He lowered his voice. Was it necessary to tell Lily something like this? The babies are gone, so be it. Lily is a patient. Why say things that will upset her? If anything happens to her, I will never let you go. Seraphina looked at his bloodshot eyes and finally couldn't resist slapping him across the face. He had personally killed their children, and upon hearing her say such words, he felt no remorse, only concern about not upsetting Liliana. If not for the lack of evidence, she truly wished she could send this monster to prison. The slap was delivered without restraint. Julian stood frozen, utter disbelief on his face. Mr. Harrington, she insisted on asking me, so I answered. If you don't want her upset, you should control her mouth and stop her from asking questions she already knows the answer to, just to make me uncomfortable. She spoke coldly. You're right, the babies are gone, so be it. I don't want to be in your sight either. Just sign the divorce papers quickly, and I will never have anything to do with you again. Liliana first froze, then a flash of ecstatic joy appeared in her eyes. She had only intended to get rid of those 2 babies. She never expected Seraphina couldn't take it, and actually asked Julian for a divorce once Seraphina left. She wouldn't have to bother pretending to be sick anymore, and could marry directly into the Harrington family. Everything that happened abroad could be treated as if it never occurred. She would still have everyone's affection. Seraphina Fletcher, in this lifetime, would only ever be her stepping stone. Chapter 4. Hearing Seraphina mention divorce again, Julian's heart sank instantly, and his tone turned colder. Seraphina Fletcher, have you had enough of this drama? Don't think you can threaten me by constantly bringing up divorce. You're a housewife. Without the Harrington family, you probably wouldn't survive a single day. Seraphina looked at him coldly. Just sign the papers. How I live my life afterward is my own business. Liliana's eyes flickered, and she stepped forward to persuade. Sister, don't say things in anger. I know you're heartbroken about losing the children, but divorce isn't a small matter. How can you just say it so casually? As she spoke, she reached out, feigning intimacy, to take Seraphina's hand. Seraphina frowned in disgust, instinctively pulling her hand back. But then she saw Liliana cry out and fall backward. Seeing this, Julian's eyes instantly turned red. He rushed forward and caught Liliana in his arms. Lily, his eyes were filled with concern as he carefully checked her for injuries. He saw a large scrape on the fair, delicate knee beneath her white dress, blood slowly oozing out. Julian's pupils contracted, his eyes full of pain for her. Liliana gave a weak smile in his arms. Julian, I'm fine. Please don't blame sister, she didn't do it on purpose. Her words acted like fuel to a fire. Julian abruptly looked up, his gaze dark as he glared at Seraphina. Lily was kindly trying to talk sense into you, and you treat her like this. Seraphina Fletcher. How can your heart be so vicious? Seraphina looked at him as if he were an idiot and sneered. She came over to grab me herself, then fell down herself. How did that become my viciousness? Just because you're being played like a fool, do you think everyone else is an idiot like you? Julian's face darkened further, practically grinding his teeth. Seraphina Fletcher, you dare slander Lily? I clearly saw you push her. Seraphina didn't want to get tangled up with these 2 any longer. It was a complete waste of time. She turned to leave, but heard Julian's cold voice again. Who said you could leave? Apologize to Lily right now. She ignored him and took a few more steps forward, but her wrist was suddenly gripped tightly. Julian's eyes held a chilling fury as he dragged her in front of Liliana. Apologize, or don't blame me for being harsh. Let go. Seraphina struggled forcefully, but couldn't break free, her face ugly. A slight curve appeared on Liliana's lips, a hint of triumph hidden in her eyes. Julian, don't make things difficult for sister. I really don't blame her. Seraphina laughed out of sheer anger and looked at Julian mockingly. You think Liliana really has a terminal illness? Have you ever seen a real leukemia patient? Open your eyes and look carefully. The wound on her knee has already stopped bleeding. Leukemia patients have clotting disorders. How could her bleeding stop so easily? Julian looked startled, his gaze subconsciously drifting to Liliana's knee. Indeed, the wound that had been bleeding had stopped. A flicker of suspicion rose in his heart. Liliana's heart lurched. How did she know I was faking it? No, I absolutely cannot let Julian believe her. She quickly covered the wound, her eyes reddening. The doctor was afraid I might get injured recently and worsen my condition, so he gave me a clotting injection yesterday. Julian instantly understood, his gaze towards Seraphina becoming even angrier. Lily's illness was diagnosed at a reputable hospital. Do you think you can slander her just by saying something like that? Seraphina's look grew more mocking. Clotting injections need to be administered continuously for 7-10 days to be effective. She just got one yesterday. How could it possibly work today? Julian frowned, instinctively retorting, "What do you know? You're just a housewife. Do you think you're a doctor? Whether what I said is true or not, just ask a doctor and you'll know." Seraphina had already taken advantage of Julian's momentary distraction to pull free. Now she stood several steps back, her gaze mocking. Julian wanted to say more, but she had already turned and left without a backward glance. Watching her slender figure recede into the distance, an inexplicable unease arose in his heart, as if she were about to leave his life forever. Could it be what she said was true? Liliana watched Julian's shifting expression and immediately gripped his hand tightly, tears streaming down her face. "Julian, I'm really not like what sister said." "I didn't lie." Julian snapped back to reality. Seeing her wronged and pitiful appearance, the scales in his heart instantly tipped again. He gently held her hand, comforting her softly. "Stop crying. Of course, I believe you." Liliana readily fell into his embrace, crying even harder, but malice flickered in the depths of her eyes. She had to get Mom and Dad to kick that bitch Seraphina out of the Fletcher family as soon as possible. That way, she couldn't interfere with her plans anymore. Meanwhile, after leaving the hospital, Seraphina immediately went to the immigration office to apply for her visa. Because time was tight, she specifically requested expedited processing. The visa should be ready in about 5 days. As she stepped out of the building, her phone rang. Seraphina glanced at it. It was her best friend, Chloe Davies. "Sierra, I heard from Professor Albright that you're going to the US with them next month. Why didn't you tell me? Am I still your best friend?" Chloe's excited voice came through the phone. Seraphina quickly explained, "Chloe, calm down first. This was a last-minute decision." "Where are you now?" "I'm coming to find you right away," Chloe cut her off rapidly. Seraphina knew her friend's personality and could only give her the address of the restaurant she frequented. 20 minutes later, Chloe burst into the restaurant like a whirlwind and spotted Seraphina sitting by the window at a glance. "Sierra, what exactly is going on? If you're going to the US now, what about the baby in your belly?" she asked urgently before even sitting down. Seraphina gently stirred her coffee cup, saying lightly, "There were problems with the baby. I had a miscarriage. I've already asked Julian for a divorce." Chloe was sharp and immediately frowned. "Did the problems with the baby have something to do with him?" "To make me donate bone marrow to Liliana Fletcher, he put teratogenic drugs in the milk I drank." Seraphina nodded, speaking calmly as if recounting someone else's story. Chloe's eyes instantly reddened with anger. She slammed her fist on the table, furious. That bastard, that was his own child. She gripped Seraphina's hand tightly, her eyes filled with sympathy. "Sierra, it's okay. Divorcing scum like him is the right thing to do. We'll find someone better later, have a bunch of kids, and piss him off." Seraphina was amused by her words. Thinking of Julian's infertility, she thought if she really did have a bunch of kids with someone else, it might actually piss him off to death. "All right, let's not talk about depressing people. Once I get my visa, I can go abroad next month." Just as she finished speaking, the restaurant door was suddenly pushed open, and Julian walked in with Liliana on his arm. Seraphina was sitting near the entrance, so naturally they heard her words. Liliana looked innocent and asked curiously, "Sister, are you going abroad? Where are you going?" Chapter 5. Seraphina hadn't expected to run into these two here. She felt like she must have stepped out without checking her horoscope to be this unlucky. But actually, Liliana had deliberately dragged Julian to this restaurant, knowing it was where he and Seraphina used to come for every anniversary. Before Seraphina could speak, Chloe couldn't hold back anymore. She slammed her cup heavily on the table and glared at Liliana. "Didn't your mother teach you not to eavesdrop on other people's conversations? You're not young anymore, have some decency. And are we close? Or do you live by the sea, meddling so much you even care where we're going?" Chloe's voice was loud, and her words were extremely rude, instantly drawing the attention of others in the restaurant, who all turned to look. Liliana's face turned pale, her body swayed slightly, and her eyes instantly reddened as large tears rolled down. "Sister, I was just concerned about you. We're sisters, aren't we? Do you really hate me that much?" she sobbed pitifully, looking as if Seraphina and Chloe had bullied her severely. Julian, standing beside her, had already darkened his face. He shielded Liliana behind him and stared coldly at Seraphina. Seraphina Fletcher, Lily is your own sister and you gang up with an outsider to bully her like this. Are you even fit to be her sister? Seraphina laughed, unconcerned. If you say I'm not fit, then I'm not. I can't handle such a good sister anyway. Julian was momentarily speechless, his face turning uglier. He gritted his teeth and questioned. Seraphina Fletcher, how did you become like this? Lily is waiting for your bone marrow to save her life, and you still have the mood to go abroad for fun. Is your heart made of stone? Seraphina sneered. It seemed Julian still didn't believe her words, but that was expected. Looks like she needed to find a way to rip off Liliana's mask, or she wouldn't have peace even before leaving the country. Chloe trembled with anger at Julian's words, pointing at his nose and cursing. I've seen shameless people, but never anyone as shameless as you two. Just because she's sick, you force Sera to donate bone marrow. Does that mean if she dies, she has to drag Sera down with her? Get the hell out of here, or don't blame me for getting rough. Chloe, don't be impulsive, Seraphina quickly grabbed her hand, afraid her fiery temper would lead her to actually hit Julian, turning their justified anger into an unreasonable act. Julian's face was so dark it looked like ink could drip from it. He looked at her and threatened coldly, Seraphina Fletcher, don't even think about escaping abroad. Come with me to the hospital right now to donate the bone marrow, or don't blame me for being harsh. With that, his large hand grabbed her arm, and he strode towards the restaurant exit. Sera, Chloe's face changed. She immediately tried to help but was too anxious and was deliberately tripped by a prepared Liliana. Liliana's high-heeled foot stomped heavily on Chloe's ankle as she feigned panic. Are you all right? Julian is just too worried about me. He didn't mean to make things difficult for sister. Chloe watched Seraphina being dragged towards the door by Julian, frantic. She desperately tried to stand up, but the sharp pain in her ankle prevented her. Julian Harrington, let go of me or I'll call the police. Seraphina saw the fallen Chloe and felt anxious too, gritting her teeth. Julian was unfazed, turning back to say coldly, go ahead and call. Don't forget we're married. Even if the police come, it's just a domestic dispute. Seraphina was so angry her eyes turned red. Just as she was about to fight him regardless of the consequences, the restaurant door suddenly opened, and a tall figure strode in quickly. The next second, Julian's arm was firmly gripped by the man and thrown forcefully out of the restaurant. Are you all right? A clear, deep, cold voice sounded from above. Seraphina looked up blankly and saw an exceptionally handsome face. He had stunning phoenix eyes, slightly upturned at the corners, distinctly alluring, yet his gaze was cold and detached. He wore a white shirt, black trousers, and a dark gray cashmere coat, looking sharp and refined. Adrien, why are you here? Seraphina finally found her voice after a long moment, her gaze complex. She never thought she would meet Adrien Thorne again under such circumstances. He was Professor Albright's student and the senior colleague who had taken care of her the most. After she interrupted her studies to marry Julian, she hadn't seen him again. She still remembered when she left the lab back then. He ran out and grabbed her arm, his amber eyes fixed on her, asking with a complex expression, Seraphina Fletcher, won't you regret this? At that time, blinded by love, she had answered without hesitation, no regrets. Thinking back now, it was truly ironic. If I hadn't come, you might have been bullied to death. His tone was still cool, but his eyes held deep concern. He carefully helped her up and shielded her in his embrace. Julian, who had finally gotten up from the ground not far away, had a face as black as ink. He spoke gloomily, no wonder you kept wanting a divorce. So you've been hooking up with another man outside? As soon as he finished speaking, a fierce glint flashed in Adrien Thorne's phoenix eyes. He snapped his fingers lightly, and several uniformly dressed bodyguards appeared. Get rid of him. Don't let him appear in front of Miss Fletcher again. His voice was sharp, laced with a heavy threat. Julian stared wide-eyed in disbelief, struggling fiercely, his eyes red as he glared at the two. Seraphina Fletcher, how dare you? He only managed to shout that before being restrained by the bodyguards and bundled into a car. Liliana, who had witnessed everything, was already pale with fright. She looked fearfully at Adrien Thorne beside Seraphina, not daring to say another word, and hurried towards the restaurant exit. Who said you could leave? Seraphina wasn't ready to let her go. She blocked her path and slapped her hard across the face. This slap is for Chloe, she said coldly, then slapped her again with the back of her hand. This slap is for myself. She used almost all her strength. Both of Liliana's cheeks instantly swelled up. She clutched her face tightly, asking meekly, Can I go now? Get lost, Seraphina spat out the words coldly. If you mess with me again, it won't be just 2 simple slaps. Liliana nodded quickly, hiding the venom in her eyes, and ran out of the restaurant. Seraphina ignored her and immediately ran to Chloe's side, asking with concern, Chloe, are you all right? Chloe, pale-faced, was helped up by her, hissing in pain, I'm fine, just twisted my ankle. Then she looked at Adrien Thorne behind Seraphina, her eyes sparkling. Adrien, I was wondering why you hadn't shown up yet. Turns out you were timing your heroic rescue perfectly. Chapter 6, it was obvious who the beauty being rescued was. Seraphina and Adrien Thorne weren't actually close enough to joke like this. Feeling awkward, she cut Chloe off. It shouldn't be your foot that's hurt, but this mouth of yours. Chloe stood on one leg, leaning on Seraphina's shoulder. Whether it's my leg or my mouth, you wouldn't have the heart. Seraphina sighed, helpless against her friend, rolling her eyes. Looks like you really aren't in pain. Chloe wanted to banter more, but a sharp pain shot through her ankle. Adrien Thorne, who had been silent, reached out from the side to support Chloe, easing the pressure on Seraphina. He said calmly, Let me take you both to the hospital. No need, I can just grab a cab, Chloe patted Seraphina. You and Adrien should discuss the study abroad details. He's still working under Professor Albright, you know. Besides, you've missed so many classes, you need to figure out how to catch up. Simultaneously, she gave Seraphina a meaningful wink. Seraphina pretended not to understand her meaning. In your condition, who would dare let you go to the hospital alone? Let's go. Chloe's objections were futile. Adrien drove them to the hospital, helped Chloe get X-rays, and picked up her medication. Afterward, Adrien and Seraphina took Chloe home together. Chloe's brother was home. She looked at the two and said, Since there's still some time, you two should talk properly about going abroad. If you have extra time, you could chat about other things too, like starting a new romance, right? Don't let me hold up important matters. With that, she quickly slipped inside and shut the door with a bang. This left Seraphina feeling quite awkward. She wasn't even divorced from Julian yet, and Chloe was already setting her up on a blind date, albeit indirectly. Adrien! Seraphina felt unsure what to say when facing Adrien Thorne alone. She explained on Chloe's behalf, Don't mind what Chloe said, she was just joking. It's fine, Adrien's voice was gentle. I understand Chloe's personality. Seraphina raised an eyebrow, a guess forming in her mind. By the way, Seraphina, let's exchange contact information. Professor Albright is handling the study abroad procedures recently. If there are any documents you need to submit, you can send them to me, and I'll hand them in for you, Adrien said as they entered the elevator together. Seraphina didn't overthink it, took out her phone, and exchanged WeChat contacts with Adrien. If anything comes up, I'll contact you immediately, Adrien said, one hand in his pocket. I'll take you back now. Where are you staying? Seraphina gave him the address of a hotel. Thank you for the trouble, Adrien. Ding, the elevator doors opened. If you need anything, just ask. Don't hesitate to be direct with me, Adrien said to Seraphina before stepping out of the elevator. After being dropped off at the hotel, Seraphina thanked him and went upstairs. Once in her room, Seraphina subconsciously glanced out the window. Adrien's car was still parked by the roadside. He leaned against the car door, a faint red glow flickering between his fingers. Her phone vibrated. Seraphina checked it. It was a message from Adrien. Are you back in your room? Seraphina replied. Yes, I'm back. You should head back soon too. Adrien, okay. Seraphina didn't dwell on it, went into the bathroom, and when she came out, a message lay quietly on her phone. Lock the door properly. Stay safe. It was also from Adrien. Seraphina had already been preparing for bed. Seeing the message, she specifically went to double-check if she had locked the door securely. The next day, she was awakened by her phone ringing. Glancing at the caller ID, it showed Leukemia Fletcher. Seraphina initially didn't want to answer, but Leukemia persistently called 4 or 5 times. Resigned, she answered, wanting to see what her mother wanted this time. Seraphina Fletcher, how long are you going to be unreasonable? Elena roared on the other end. Your sister was just kindly concerned about you, and you slapped her. Have you really grown wings now, daring to hit your own sister? Seraphina sat up, leaning against the headboard, her voice cool and distant. Mrs. Fletcher, is this the only reason you called me? This reason? Elena, seeing her speak so lightly, completely unaware of the seriousness, grew angrier. What do you mean, just this reason? Your sister is hospitalized because of you. If you have any conscience left, get to the hospital right now, click. The call ended. Seraphina held the phone, stunned for a moment, then gave a self-deprecating laugh. Elena believed only one side, didn't even ask her about the cause and effect, and just decided it was her fault. She rubbed her temples, got out of bed, and went to the bathroom to wash up. When she came out, a message arrived from Adrien. When are you free today? I'd like to treat you to a meal. Some of the documents you submitted are missing parts, and there are some details about the upcoming trip abroad that I need to discuss with you in person. This message eased Seraphina's heavy mood. She replied, I'm free all day today. Let me choose the restaurant. Thank you for your help, Adrien. A few minutes later, Adrien sent an address directly. I've already booked it. Seraphina had no choice but to go. She brought the documents Adrien mentioned were missing. When she arrived, she found Adrien had booked a private room in a high-end restaurant. A hostess led her all the way in. Pushing the door open, she saw Adrien Thorne, dressed in a crisp suit, sitting at the head seat. He was on the phone, his expression cool, uttering professional terms Seraphina couldn't understand. Afraid of disturbing him, Seraphina sat down opposite him, remaining quiet. When Adrien finished his call, he frowned slightly. Sorry, something came up with the family unexpectedly. I made you wait. It's all right. Seraphina felt instead that she had delayed Adrien's important business. Actually, if Adrien is very busy, explaining things over the phone would have been fine. We didn't necessarily have to meet. Adrien stared at her intently. Seraphina sensed something was off and frowned slightly. Did I say something wrong? No. Adrien handed her a menu. Order whatever you like. Seraphina wasn't really here to eat, so she casually ordered 2 items. But when the waiter came, Adrien said, Please hold the ginger in this dish. She doesn't eat it. Thank you. The waiter smiled knowingly, glancing suggestively at Seraphina. Seraphina knew the waiter had misunderstood, but in this situation, she couldn't easily clarify her relationship with Adrien face to face. Fortunately, the waiter left after serving the food. Adrien carefully explained the points of attention to Seraphina, then took out another document. I've compiled a file. You can take a closer look to see if anything is missing. Chapter 7. At that moment, Seraphina felt a strange mix of emotions. Adrien, since you've already prepared detailed documents, you could have just given them to me directly. There was no need to waste time on a meal. Adrien smiled gently. We'll be colleagues once we go abroad. Getting familiar now will make things easier later. His words sounded reasonable. Seraphina mocked herself inwardly. It seemed her paranoia was getting severe. She actually thought Adrien had other intentions. What's wrong? Adrien noticed her hesitation. Having mentally chided herself, Seraphina felt a bit awkward meeting his gaze again. No, I was just thinking, I haven't been back in 5 years. I wonder if I can still adapt. You adapted before, you can adapt again. It's only been 5 years, Adrien stated calmly. His words gave Seraphina a strong boost of confidence. Yes, she could do it before, so she could do it again. After discussing business and finishing their meal, they left. Just as they reached the restaurant entrance, a figure suddenly approached. Before Seraphina could see clearly, the person raised a hand to slap her. The slap never landed. Adrien intercepted it. Look what you did to your sister's face. Elena glared furiously. And you still have the nerve to be out here flirting with another man? Seraphina stood her ground, her voice cold. Why was Liliana hit? You didn't even bother asking before coming straight to blame me. Elena pulled her hand free from Adrien's grasp, shot him a look, and turned to Seraphina. Lily has always been Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, well-behaved and sensible. What could she possibly do wrong? If there's blame, it's yours. You must be jealous of Lily again. You're Lily's sister. Julian is her brother-in-law. It's all family. What's wrong with him taking care of Lily a bit more? She became increasingly agitated, even pointing her finger at Seraphina's nose. I've never seen a woman so wary of her own sister. You're incredibly petty. Lily isn't like you, unambitious, only knowing how to revolve around men. If she hadn't been held back by leukemia, you wouldn't even be able to catch a glimpse of her now. Even though she had anticipated Aliner's attitude, Seraphina couldn't remain completely unmoved. However, Aliner's actions merely confirmed her suspicions. Is that so? Seraphina sneered. So, Mrs. Fletcher also believes Liliana has leukemia? The sarcasm in her voice was heavy. Aliner grew even more furious. What? Hitting Lily wasn't enough for you. Now you want to spread rumors too? She's already suffering enough battling this illness. Why can't you feel sorry for her? Besides jealousy and scheming, what else is in your heart? Being berated like this by her own mother in front of a former friend was truly humiliating. But Seraphina knew why Aliner had come this time. Since Mrs. Fletcher believes that, then just assume I'm jealous, Seraphina said coldly. Because I'm jealous, I don't want to donate bone marrow to Liliana. As expected, upon mentioning bone marrow, Aliner's expression changed drastically. She couldn't help but curse loudly. How could I give birth to such a cold-hearted, heartless monster? You refuse to donate marrow. Are you just going to watch your sister die? Seraphina cleaned her ear nonchalantly. Instead of pointing fingers at me here, you should go back and seriously investigate your precious daughter's illness. Find out what's really going on. Then, she took Adrien's hand and walked away directly. Aliner wanted to chase them, but was blocked by strangers who appeared out of nowhere. Once in the car, Seraphina fell silent. Adrien didn't say a word, driving quietly until they reached the seaside. By the time Seraphina came back to her senses, he had already parked the car. Want to take a walk? Adrien suggested. Seraphina forced a smile. Sorry, Adrien, for making you witness that. Family matters are complicated. Adrien opened his car door and turned to look at her. Everyone has family issues they can't sort out. It's normal. Seraphina got out of the car and walked with him along the sandy beach. The waves washed ashore. Many shells were swept onto the beach. Adrien took off his suit jacket, casually handing it to Seraphina. He rolled up his sleeves loosely, revealing strong forearms. He occasionally bent down to pick up shells, carefully selecting among them. Seraphina didn't know what he was doing, but she was grateful that Adrien didn't ask any questions. After walking back and forth a few times, Adrien finally asked, "How are you feeling now?" "Much better," Seraphina smiled. Adrien handed her a conch shell. "Picked for a while, only this one is decent. In the future, if there's something you don't want to talk about, you can tell it. It will faithfully keep your secrets." This time, Seraphina genuinely laughed. She carefully put the conch shell away. "Thank you, Adrien." This time, Adrien couldn't drive Seraphina back to the hotel. He received an urgent call halfway, arranged for another car to take her back, and left early himself. Just as she reached the hotel lobby, before Seraphina could even enter the elevator, two voices came from the side. It was Aliner and Liliana. "Sister," Liliana's face still bore the marks from yesterday's slap. She ran towards Seraphina, repeatedly apologizing softly. "I didn't know Mom went looking for you because of me. I'm sorry. I brought Mom here to apologize to you. Also, about the divorce, are you really determined?" Seraphina kept her hands in her pockets, watching her quietly. "So, is it because of me?" Liliana bit her lower lip, her eyes looking even more innocent. "If it's because of me that you and Julian are divorcing, then it's all my fault, sister. Please don't get divorced, okay? You can always have children again later." She took a step forward, trying to grab Seraphina's hand. But Seraphina, having been tricked once, simply took 2 small steps back. Liliana missed, yet still managed to stumble and fall to the ground. From a distance, Aliner rushed over almost instantly, aggressive and furious. "Seraphina Fletcher, in broad daylight, you dare lay a hand on Lily? Do you have any semblance of being a sister? Our Fletcher family raised such an ingrate." Seraphina pointed at Aliner, then pointed towards the ceiling above, where a surveillance camera was quietly operating. "Mom, if your eyesight is failing, go check the hotel's surveillance footage," Seraphina said calmly. "Watch carefully and see if I even touched Liliana Fletcher." Chapter 8. Liliana scrambled up from the floor, whimpering, "Mom, it's my fault, don't blame sister. I just lost my balance, sister only dodged." Aliner's expression shifted. She sized up Seraphina and said discontentedly, "So she's not wrong just because she dodged. Doesn't she know your physical condition? Why did she have to dodge? Clap, clap, clap. Seraphina applauded. Wow, if I don't dodge, she falls, and you blame me for pushing her. If I dodge, you say I had an obligation to catch her? Even though I'm her sister, I'm still a person. Especially when dealing with a clingy pest I can't shake off, keeping a distance is best. These words undoubtedly fueled Alina's anger further. She gritted her teeth. Seraphina Fletcher, you dare insult me and Lily, calling us clingy pests, don't forget, you are my daughter, huh? Seraphina widened her eyes in mock surprise. Oh, so I am your daughter. I thought I was adopted, she sneered and turned towards the elevator. She had no intention of continuing this entanglement with the mother-daughter pair. Where are you going? Alina wasn't about to let her leave just like that. She grabbed her arm. Seraphina Fletcher, you've thrown your tantrum, said your harsh words. Enough. Tomorrow, go get a full checkup. Lily needs to prepare for surgery too. Seraphina coldly eyed the hand gripping her arm, narrowing her eyes slightly. So they interpreted her words as a tantrum. As harsh words, Seraphina even chuckled. She slowly turned her head to look at Liliana. Of course, I can get a full checkup. However, the hospital for the checkup and surgery will be designated by me. How about that? Lily, my dear sister. Liliana's face paled. She lowered her head, clutching Alina's hand. Of course. If sister is willing to help me, I'm naturally very happy. Coincidentally, there's a hospital where I know a friend. Seraphina smirked slightly, her gaze still fixed intently on Liliana. He studied pharmacology. Since my sister has been battling this illness for so long without much effect, perhaps we could let my friend take a look. Liliana shuddered visibly. Seeing Seraphina change her attitude, Alina was naturally pleased. However, fearing she might use this to make demands, she said somewhat passive-aggressively, You've been a housewife for 5 years. What kind of friends could you possibly know? Can they be reliable? Just the friend who was with me today. Seraphina continued to watch Liliana, a slight smile playing on her lips. My sister has met him too. Liliana thought of Adrien Thorne, and her face instantly turned deathly white. She gripped Alina's hand tightly. Mom, my matter isn't urgent. Sister just had surgery, let her recover properly first, okay? Alina turned her head, looking at her lovingly. Silly girl, you're always so considerate. Look how your sister has bullied you. She hasn't, Liliana explained softly. Seraphina scoffed and shook her head. Alina glared at her. Look at your sister, always thinking of you, and you, what have you done? Jealous and hitting your sister. If you really have those connections, bring them for me to see later. If there are no issues, then we can arrange it for your sister. Look at that reprimanding tone. Seraphina couldn't be bothered arguing with her anymore. Anyway, in a few days, she would be gone. Just as she was about to leave, Liliana blocked her again. Sister, come home with us. Even if you're having a spat with Julian, we are still your family, Liliana said pitifully, grabbing Seraphina's hand. With Seraphina outside, she always felt uneasy. She needed to personally oversee the divorce process between her and Julian to completion. Seraphina pulled her hand free. No need, I wouldn't want to disturb your family life. She turned and went upstairs. Alina's expression was ugly. Look, after raising her for so many years, look what kind of character she's developed. Mom, sister is just in a bad mood. Don't take it to heart, Liliana said softly. It's good to let sister cool down a bit too. Alina had achieved her goal, so she didn't push further. Leading Liliana away, she muttered as she walked, Tell me, what kind of madness possessed your sister? Why does she suddenly want to divorce Julian Harrington? Marrying into the Harrington family was already generations of good fortune for her. Now she's acting up again. When Julian really doesn't want her, she won't be able to find someone that good again. Liliana followed behind her, saying softly, Mom, you really don't want sister and Julian to divorce? Nonsense, Alina grabbed her hand. Our family still relies on the Harringtons for many things. If she divorces him, how could Julian possibly continue helping our family? But Julian is very good to me too. Liliana mentioned it as if unintentionally. If sister and Julian divorce, maybe Julian will help our family. For my sake, Alina suddenly grasped her hand, speaking with particular earnestness. Lily, speaking of this, you must be careful about your relationship with Julian Harrington. Liliana's heart sank. Mom, what's wrong? Mom knows what you're thinking, Alina whispered. After all, Liliana was supposed to marry Julian initially, then suddenly ran off. Now her relationship with him was so close. How could she not understand her own daughter's intentions? But your sister is already married. If she divorces and you get entangled with him again, where would our family put its face? Besides, the Harrington family wouldn't agree either. Liliana lowered her gaze, a trace of resentment flashing in her eyes. Unless Seraphina Fletcher dies, it's unjustifiable, Eleanor added casually at the end. Liliana narrowed her eyes slightly. Die? Making someone die quietly. Isn't that a perfectly normal thing? 9 o'clock at night. Seraphina was looking through the documents Adrien had given her when her phone buzzed a few times. Documents. It was a file sent by Adrien. These are the course materials from the past few years. I'm not sure how much you've missed, but you have a good foundation. Use this time to review thoroughly. Seraphina had just been browsing the web for study materials when Adrien sent them over. She sent Adrien a thank you emoji. Adrien sent back an emoji of petting a small dog. For some reason, Seraphina felt the dog resembled her. She shook her head, telling herself not to overthink. Your documents and IDs are incomplete. Professor Albright messaged me, asking me to help you run some errands. With my connections, things can be expedited. Seraphina quickly replied, Okay, then shall we meet tomorrow at 9 at the agency entrance? I'll pick you up. Seraphina felt like she was taking advantage of him and was quite embarrassed. Isn't that too much trouble, always bothering you, Adrien? It's fine. I'm responsible for the team this time anyway. Hearing this eased Seraphina's guilt. The next moment, Adrien sent another message. Where's the conch shell I gave you? Seraphina had washed it after returning and placed it beside her desk. She hopped off the bed, walked to the desk, took a picture, and sent it. Don't worry, Adrien, I'm keeping it safe. It will be my confidant from now on. Adrien, good. As Seraphina was about to sleep, Adrien's message came again. Rest early. Good night. Seraphina groggily sent a good night back. The next morning, she got ready early. She had planned to wait for Adrien's message before going downstairs. But when ordering breakfast, the hotel staff mentioned the elevator was malfunctioning and under repair. Seraphina was staying on a high floor. After eating, she sent Adrien a message. The hotel elevator is being repaired. I'll take the stairs down. Are you on your way? Adrien, already on the way. Afraid of delaying him, Seraphina slung her small bag with the documents over her shoulder and entered the stairwell. Because it was still relatively early, the stairwell was empty. Seraphina descended several floors in one go. Looking up, she felt a sense of emptiness, as if she were completely alone. An inexplicable unease crept in. Images from horror movies flashed through her mind. She quickly shook her head and ran down. Just as she was about to reach the first floor, she heard a creak. The first floor door opened, and a cleaner pushing a garbage cart walked in. The sudden appearance of a stranger instantly put Seraphina on high alert. She remained vigilant. She carefully observed the person. The man seemed quite tall and well-built. Tall and built. As Seraphina passed him, she suddenly felt something wasn't right. Usually, city cleaners were older people doing this kind of work. It was rare to see someone so tall and built. Suddenly, a hand reached out from behind, covering her nose. Chapter 9, Seraphina struggled instinctively, but soon, a strong, pungent odor filled her nostrils, and she gradually lost consciousness. When she woke up again, her hands were bound behind her back, and her eyes were covered with a blindfold, rendering her unable to see anything. Her mouth was gagged, the cloth stuffed deep inside, impossible to dislodge no matter how she tried with her tongue. Her heart pounded wildly. Seraphina didn't know the purpose of her kidnapping. She didn't dare move rashly, sensing she was inside a moving car. The road seemed rough, jostling her frequently. Boss, do we really have to kill her? Someone suddenly spoke in the quiet air. If we actually kill someone, it'll be trouble if they investigate. The client wants her dead so she won't appear in front of them again. Another rough voice sounded. Selling her off to some remote mountain village works just the same. Chain her up, guarantee she won't escape for the rest of her life. These men, regulars in the underworld, knew which crimes carried heavier sentences. Murder meant a severe sentence. But human trafficking, if they didn't kill, might only mean 3 years. If caught, worst case, they'd serve 3 years. Cold sweat beaded on Seraphina's back, her heart palpitating violently. But the more fear she felt, the calmer she needed to be. The only person who might notice her kidnapping was Adrien Thorne. I hope Adrien is sharp enough to realize something is wrong. The car continued forward. Seraphina pretended to still be unconscious. Boss, her phone keeps ringing. This Adrien guy keeps messaging her. Use her finger to unlock it with the fingerprint, send him some random reply. Seraphina kept her eyes closed, feeling someone grab her hand, attempting to unlock the phone with her fingerprint, but failing. Boss, it's not working, her phone's fingerprint lock won't open. Then forget about it, the rough voice said again. We're already far away anyway. Panic began to rise in Seraphina's heart. However, the underling's voice piped up again. Damn, boss, this Adrien guy is tracking us. He sent this woman an address, asking what she's doing going there. Seraphina's heart jolted. When Adrien and I had dinner, he said he borrowed my phone to send a file. I didn't think much of it then. Could it have been then? Must have installed a tracking app on her phone, the boss cursed. Throw the phone out. Okay, Seraphina panicked. If the phone was gone, her hope of Adrien finding her would vanish. She muffled sounds, trying to make noise. Boss, she seems to have something to say, the talkative underling said. Maybe we should hear her out. The boss was extremely annoyed. You ask her then, I need to drive, we're about to leave the city limits. The underling came over, pulled the cloth from Seraphina's mouth, and pinched her chin. What do you want? Don't throw the phone away. There's money in it, a lot of money. I can transfer it to you, Seraphina said calmly. You do jobs for money. I'll give you money to buy my safety. After I get back, I won't report it to the police. The boss sneered. Little sister, don't take us for fools. You say you won't call the police now, but the moment you give us the money, we'll be arrested. This, Adrien, is my bodyguard, Seraphina said calmly. If I don't reply to him within an hour, he will call the police. The whole city will be on lockdown. Even if you manage to escape the city, with today's surveillance capabilities, unless you flee to a very remote mountain village, finding you is just a matter of half a day. Indeed, both men were intimidated. Chapter 10, the boss's face suddenly turned savage. He lowered his voice, speaking viciously, Then I'll just have to kill you, or you could choose to cooperate with me. Seraphina tried to open her blindfolded eyes. You do this line of work just for money. I have money, and I just want to buy my safety. Since I can offer a higher price than the other party, why not choose to cooperate with me? Cooperate? The underling seemed interested. How do we cooperate? The person who hired you to kidnap me and harm me, did they leave a contact method? Seraphina asked. The boss suddenly spoke up. Don't try to get information about who it is from us. There are rules in this business. We can't reveal client information. 500,000, Seraphina interrupted. I'll pay 500,000 USD for one piece of information. 500,000, the underling was shocked. The boss pondered for a moment, then still said, No. Seraphina didn't push. How about this? I'll give you 500,000. You don't need to tell me the specific details, just tell me if it was a man or a woman. She didn't have many enemies. Julian probably didn't want her dead yet. After all, in Julian's eyes, she was currently valuable, needed to donate bone marrow to Liliana. The only one likely to want her harmed was Liliana. It was a woman, the underling blurted out eagerly. Transfer the money to us now, Seraphina said. My hands are tied and I can't see to operate the phone. Wait, the underling said. Seraphina waited, hearing rustling sounds. Then her hands were untied, but quickly rebound in front of her chest. After a moment, the blindfold over her eyes was removed. Here, a man wearing a Monkey King mask handed her the phone. I'll give you my bank account number. Transfer the money now. Okay, Seraphina replied, but my account has transfer limits. I can't transfer 500,000 all at once. I can only send part of it first. Hurry up, the Monkey King's voice was muffled and urgent. Seraphina calmly transferred the money. After completing the transaction, she glanced at the messages from Adrien. Then she asked obediently, Can I reply to him? Otherwise, he'll get very worried. Reply. The underling remembered what Seraphina had said earlier and urged, Quickly reply. Only then did Seraphina open Adrien's chat window and send a message. I'm fine, Adrien. What are you doing? Adrien on the other end fell silent. Seraphina's heart felt slightly suspended. She didn't know if Adrien understood her meaning. They had agreed yesterday to go together. Her current behavior should make Adrien guess something was wrong. Although she didn't know why Adrien had gone crazy and sent so many messages in the time before she got her phone back, right now, Seraphina could only be grateful for those messages. "I've transferred the money. You can drop me off here," Seraphina said. The boss driving the car wasn't wearing a mask, but he wore a cap and a face mask, so Seraphina couldn't see his face clearly. The remaining 200,000, the boss's tone was harsh. "Seraphina, once I get out of the car and you've driven away, I'll transfer the rest." Chapter 11, the boss sneered, "Afraid we'll go back on our word? Aren't you also afraid I won't pay?" Seraphina's heart fluttered slightly. "What if I pay and you refuse to let me go?" The boss raised an eyebrow. "Miss Fletcher, it's too late for you to be scared now. If we didn't want to let you go, the 300,000 you just transferred would be more than enough. Then we could drag you off to the mountains and sell you, earning money from another client too." A layer of cold sweat instantly broke out on Seraphina's back. "My bodyguard will catch up to you. It's precisely because we're wary of that we haven't made a move," the boss's voice deepened. "Transfer the remaining 200,000 now, and we'll let you out immediately." Seraphina bit her lower lip. "If you keep hesitating, our car will only drive further. Then you'll have to walk back yourself," the boss snorted lightly. Seraphina had no choice but to transfer the remaining money. Upon receiving the notification that the funds had arrived, the boss slammed on the brakes, opened the door, and threw Seraphina out. The car sped off as if escaping, leaving only a cloud of dust. Seraphina still clutched her phone. She sat on the ground, looking disheveled, raising her bound hands to her mouth, trying to bite through the rope around her wrists. After a long and strenuous effort, her lips were raw and her gums bled slightly, but she finally managed to gnaw the rope open. Then, trembling, she untied the rope binding her feet. Once free, Seraphina didn't linger for a second. She immediately stood up and ran forward, her legs weak. She was terrified the two men would regret it and come back for her. She didn't know how long she ran when suddenly, a car stopped beside her. Someone got out and reached for her. Seraphina jumped in fright and ran even faster. However, the person was very strong and caught her tightly from behind. "It's me, Adrien. It's okay. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid." Feeling the warmth of Adrien's embrace, the taut nerve in Seraphina finally snapped. Her legs gave way and she collapsed completely into his arms. "Adrien, I was scared." Seraphina looked up at him. Adrien didn't rush to ask what happened. Instead, he took off his coat, draped it over her, and then carried her into the car. He just held her like that, sitting in the car. The driver drove back. Seraphina trembled continuously until they entered the city and were almost back at the hotel. Only then did she recover, realizing she was still in Adrien's arms. She quickly moved to the adjacent seat. I'm okay now." Pausing, she saw Adrien's hand freeze slightly before she continued. "How did you find me?" "A few days ago, when we had dinner, I installed a tracking app on your phone," Adrien said slowly, just as Seraphina had suspected. "Don't overthink it. This software is installed on everyone's phone in our team. After all, when we go abroad, we'll be in an unfamiliar place. If anything happens, Professor Albright wouldn't be able to answer to your families," Adrien explained, seemingly afraid she might misunderstand. "I should have told you then, but I forgot. However, I did include it in the documents I compiled. Maybe you didn't see it. There was an employee handbook among the documents. Since it wasn't critical, Seraphina hadn't looked at that file first." She nodded blankly. Adrien took a bottle of water from the car fridge, opened it, and handed it to her. "Now tell me what happened." Chapter 12, Seraphina took a sip of water to calm her nerves before explaining the whole incident. "Do you still have the bank account number from the transfer or the transaction details?" Adrien asked. "We can use that to find out who the two kidnappers are." "I'm not sure if it's their personal account. Besides, even if we catch them, there's no proof that Liliana was behind it." Seraphina frowned slightly. Liliana had told so many lies, and both Alina and Julian favored her. Even if Seraphina claimed she was kidnapped and the mastermind might be Liliana, Alina and Julian wouldn't believe it. Adrien's expression turned cold. "Don't worry about that. I will do my best to help you find evidence." Seraphina paused, then let out a breath. "Adrien, thank you so much. It's what I should do." Perhaps her gaze was too direct. Adrien turned his head slightly. "After all, you're part of the team. Harm coming to any of you is unacceptable. So that's how it is." Seraphina thought, Adrien really is dedicated. She took out her phone, found the bank account number, and Adrien noted it down. After taking her back to the hotel, Adrien personally escorted her to her room but didn't go inside. If you need bodyguards, you can tell me. Seraphina shook her head. Bodyguards are just a temporary fix. Only catching the real culprit who wants to harm me will truly solve the problem. True, Adrien hesitated for a moment. But during the investigation period, we should still arrange for a couple of people to ensure your safety. Since he was arranging it, Seraphina had no objection, only saying, I'll cover the cost of hiring the bodyguards. Adrien doesn't need to pay. At that moment, Seraphina wasn't sure if it was her imagination, but she felt Adrien's expression tighten, and he squeezed out a single syllable from his throat. It made Seraphina wonder if she had said something wrong. She returned to her room, locked the door, took a shower, and when she came out, her phone was ringing. Picking it up, she saw it was Chloe. It must have been Liliana Fletcher, Chloe cursed on the other end. I'll find someone to take care of her, damn it. You're already divorcing Julian Harrington. What more does she want back then? She didn't want to marry him and forced you to take her place now. She wants to come back and get rid of you too. There's no such free lunch in the world. I'll make her taste how hard my fist is. Seraphina's head throbbed from the shouting. My dear Chloe, Adrien is already handling this matter. Don't worry, trust Adrien. He will definitely give me a satisfactory outcome. Chloe's anger subsided slightly, but she was still worried. How about you come stay with me? No one would dare touch you at my place. Adrien helped me find bodyguards. Someone is protecting me now, so you don't need to worry either. Seraphina was truly exhausted. Her nerves had been stretched taut and then suddenly released after being rescued. She didn't even remember if she hung up the phone before falling asleep. She vaguely heard Chloe on the other end saying, Adrien really cares about you. Could it be he likes you? Seraphina couldn't recall if she had told Chloe she was paying for the bodyguards herself. She's overthinking it. When she woke up, it was already dusk. The warm yellow hues of the setting sun flooded the room. Seraphina opened her eyes, staring at the hotel room, feeling a momentary sense of unreality. Thinking about the recent events, her head felt like it might explode. Chapter 13, after processing for a moment, she belatedly recalled the events of the past few days. She rubbed her eyes. Thinking about her narrow escape from death, she suddenly felt a wave of sadness. But before this feeling could completely engulf her, the doorbell suddenly rang. At this moment, it sounded slightly jarring, yet it thoroughly jolted Seraphina awake. She jumped out of bed and walked barefoot to the door. Outside, two burly men stood guard, one on each side. Adrien held a food container. I figured you'd nap after getting back, estimated you'd be up around this time. Specially ordered some food for you. I'm not. Seraphina was about to say she wasn't hungry when her stomach grumbled audibly. She smiled sheepishly. Thank you for the trouble, Adrien. No trouble, Adrien maintained a professional demeanor. Seraphina welcomed him in and sat cross-legged directly on the floor. Adrien had brought 2 servings of seafood congee, several small side dishes, and a few steamed buns filled with meat. The aroma quickly filled the air, whetting one's appetite. Seraphina opened the seafood congee and smiled at Adrien. Adrien, I won't stand on ceremony then. As long as you don't suggest we split the bill, Adrien offered a faint smile. Seraphina knew he was teasing her and smiled helplessly. Because I feel bad always having you spend money and effort. It's fine. Adrien's expression suddenly grew somewhat somber. He looked quietly at Seraphina. After all, I'm your senior. Helping you with things is only natural. Seraphina didn't know how to respond to that, so she lowered her head and started eating the congee. The account you provided, we've already found out who the holder is. However, the police need to make the arrest across jurisdictions, which will happen tonight. By tomorrow, we should probably know who instigated them to kidnap you, Adrien said. Seraphina propped her cheek on her hand. If it is Liliana, can she be locked up? She actually really wanted to see the reactions of the others if Liliana were imprisoned. The premise is having enough evidence to prove she hired someone for murder. Adrien frowned slightly. In that regard, I'm afraid the outlook isn't very promising. Seraphina had expected this. If it really was Liliana, she would definitely have acted secretively. Sure enough, the next day Seraphina received news that Liliana had been summoned, but there wasn't enough evidence, yet to prove she hired someone for murder. After being detained for 24 hours, Liliana was released on bail. Upon receiving the news of her release, Seraphina immediately rushed back to the Fletcher family home. When she arrived, Liliana was crying in Julian's arms. "Julian, Mom, I really didn't do it. It really wasn't me. I don't know why Sister is accusing me, but I never, ever thought about wanting Sister dead." A hidden glint of ruthlessness flashed in Julian's eyes. Seraphina Fletcher herself must have offended someone, yet she turns around and blames you. "Don't worry, I definitely won't let her succeed." Elena sat on the sofa, lips pursed, saying nothing. Clap, 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 Seraphina applauded. "Such a great performance." Chapter 14, Elena and Julian simultaneously turned to look at her. Elena was the first to flare up. She stood, pointing at Seraphina. "Instead of making trouble here, you should figure out who you offended that made them come after you." "Mom," Liliana clutched Elena's hand. "Don't say that. Sister is also a victim. Now that Sister is back, let's first ask clearly what happened." Liliana walked towards Seraphina, her eyes very red, with dark circles underneath, looking like she indeed hadn't rested well yesterday. "Sister, what exactly happened? I only heard at the police station that you were kidnapped. It scared me so much, I kept asking if you were hurt, but the police wouldn't tell me." Her brow furrowed tightly, her worry not appearing fake. Seraphina gazed at her, arms crossed. "Liliana Fletcher, you should apply to acting school. Not studying performance is truly a waste of your talent." Anyone could hear the sarcasm and mockery in her words. Elena's recently subsided anger instantly flared up again. But this time, before she could erupt, Julian stepped forward. His face was ugly as he grabbed Seraphina's wrist. He turned to Elena and Liliana. "Mom, Lily, wait for me here. I have something to discuss with Seraphina Fletcher." His grip was strong, pulling Seraphina's hand as he walked outside. He didn't let go until they were outside, under the scorching sun. Julian loosened his tie, his face etched with impatience. "Seraphina Fletcher, how long are you going to keep acting up? Just because I'm nice to Lily, you can't stand it. First, it was divorce, now you stage your own kidnapping. Did you want to see if we'd side with you and blame Lily? Have you ever thought what would have happened if something went wrong with Lily at the detention center last night? Her current condition can't handle such turmoil." Seraphina raised an eyebrow. "You think I staged my own kidnapping? What else?" Julian sneered. "Are you trying to say Lily really hired someone to kidnap you? Fine, where's the proof? Show me the proof." Seraphina pressed her lips together. "Can't produce it, right?" Julian looked like he had already guessed it. He pointed his index finger at Seraphina several times. "Do you think doing this will make me change my mind about you? Make me value you? Let me tell you, doing this only disgusts me more." Seraphina was slightly surprised. She expected Julian to be angry, furious even. After all, he cared so much about Liliana. But she hadn't expected him to think this was her way of trying to win him back. Seraphina felt disgusted. "Julian Harrington, don't overestimate yourself." Seraphina looked at him with emotionless eyes, her tone cool. "I lost interest in you long ago. If you find me disgusting, great. Let's go get the divorce certificate today. Tomorrow, you can treat Liliana however nicely you want." A cold sneer flashed in Julian's eyes. Get the certificate. Seraphina was just saying that, trying to use this tactic to make him yield. "Seraphina Fletcher, I'm very busy. I don't have much time to waste on you." Julian glanced at her disdainfully, his face filled with deep aversion. "But let me tell you, if something like this happens again, I won't let you off lightly at that point. Even if you cry and refuse to divorce me, I won't continue this marriage with you." "I really have never seen a man more shameless than you," Seraphina said coldly. "If you want a divorce, let's do it soon. I don't have much time to waste on you." Just then, a car suddenly stopped beside them. The window rolled down, revealing Adrien Thorne's face. He glanced sideways at Seraphina. "Seraphina, is there a problem?" Chapter 15, "It's nothing." Seraphina was slightly confused. "Adrien, what are you doing here?" "The recording of those two individuals." Adrien handed her a recording pen, his gaze falling on Julian's face. "Listen carefully to what these two kidnappers said." Seraphina glanced at him quizzically. "Okay." She took the recording pen and tossed it directly to Julian. "The evidence you wanted. Go listen to it yourself." With that, she walked straight into the Fletcher family home. She had come back this time partly to gauge Alina's attitude, and partly because she still had some important documents to retrieve. She got the documents and came downstairs. She saw Adrien sitting on the living room sofa. Beside him, Alina and Julian's faces were progressively uglier. Liliana stood behind Julian, her eyes red. "Adrien, I've got my things," Seraphina said, walking over to Adrien's side. "Let's go." Adrien stood up, ready to leave with her. Just then, Alina suddenly spoke up. Sera, can you maybe not pursue this matter?" "What matter?" Seraphina asked, raising an eyebrow. "Just this kidnapping incident," Alina stammered. Seraphina turned to look at Adrien. When she first arrived, Alina's attitude was completely different. What could have changed so drastically just from her going upstairs? Adrien said calmly, "The lawyer I hired for you will not easily give up the investigation of this matter. I just informed your family that Miss Liliana Fletcher's cooperation will be needed later." Liliana's face turned pale. "Is that so?" Seraphina nodded. She turned to look at Liliana. "Then it really will trouble you to take the time to cooperate later." She knew Adrien's family had connections. Since he had hired a lawyer and insisted on pursuing this, Liliana would need to cooperate unconditionally, at least within the statute of limitations. As for the police investigation, what impact would it have on Liliana? All one could say was, you reap what you sow. Liliana was now a somewhat famous dancer. Being implicated in such a kidnapping case, rumors swirled online. Our Lily didn't know anything who knows who her twin sister offended to actually point the finger at Lily. LOL, if there was no suspicion, why would the police keep pursuing Liliana Fletcher? Stop playing the victim, Lily's fans. This led to Liliana being pointed at and stared at strangely by nurses when she went to the hospital. Julian shielded her protectively. "Julian, I'm scared." Liliana clutched his sleeve tightly, her eyes red. "Maybe I should go apologize to sister. But I really didn't do the kidnapping." Julian's anger slowly climbed into his heart. Chapter 16, he said irritably, "It's fine, just some minor ripples. It won't affect you." Inside the hospital room, Liliana again used inconvenience as an excuse to ask Julian to step outside. The doctor treating her was an old acquaintance, very familiar with and understanding of her condition, absolutely trustworthy not to reveal her true illness. "The control has been very good this time," the doctor said after the examination. "However, I heard there's a special drug available in the US. It's just expensive, $1 million USD per shot. If you can get the special drug, it would also help control your condition." Liliana frowned tightly. "1 million? Yes." 1 million wasn't impossible to come by, but her bank account and transactions were strictly monitored by her father, simply because she had partied a bit too hard abroad before. "Okay, I understand." Liliana bit her lower lip gently. She hadn't dared to tell her family about her true illness yet. She was afraid Alina would abandon her. So, she could only get the money from Julian. "You'd better hurry," the doctor added. "Although you've maintained well recently, if you delay further and the condition worsens, it will be more troublesome. You know how special your illness is. Once particularly obvious symptoms appear, you won't be able to hide it." Liliana gritted her teeth. "I understand." There were only 2 days left before departure. Ever since being rescued, Seraphina hadn't slept well at night. Tonight, she woke up again from a nightmare, drenched in sweat. She jumped out of bed, pale-faced, and splashed water on her face at the sink. Back in bed, Seraphina found it hard to fall back asleep. In her dream, the 2 men she hadn't seen were verbally abusing her. She even dreamt she was abducted into the mountains, successfully sold to a farming household. They chained her up with thumb-thick iron chains. She tried to escape several times but failed, even becoming pregnant. Seraphina clutched her phone, sitting on the bed, wrapping her arms around herself to find some sense of security. The room was too quiet. She felt a little scared and decided to play music on her phone. While exiting the app, she accidentally tapped something and shared her playlist. It was shared to Adrien's chat window. Seraphina fumbled to retract the message. "Seraphina, accidentally clicked, it's nothing. Why are you still awake?" Seraphina leaned against the headboard, woke up. Adrien seemed to understand her. "Had a nightmare?" Seraphina paused, then continued typing. "Well, I was kidnapped. Having nightmares is understandable, right?" The next second, a video call request popped up. Seraphina accepted. On the other side, Adrien was still wearing a shirt, sitting behind a desk. His sleeves were loosely rolled up and rimless glasses perched on his nose, making him look cool and detached. "Couldn't sleep because you were scared?" Adrien asked. Seraphina felt embarrassed to admit it and changed the subject. "Why isn't Adrien asleep yet?" "The lawyer compiled your case file. I'm reviewing it." Adrien said this without much emotional fluctuation, as if discussing a mundane matter. But in this quiet moment, it gave Seraphina a very special feeling. "Adrien, are you this nice to everyone?" Seraphina asked blankly. Adrien had been looking at her, but now he turned his head slightly away, remaining silent. Chapter 17. As if realizing belatedly that she had asked a foolish question, Seraphina lowered her gaze and said nothing more. Before, hadn't Adrien said it himself? He was responsible for the team going abroad, so it was right for him to be a bit more attentive if anyone had problems. Seraphina sighed inwardly. "Adrien, don't work too hard." "It's fine," Adrien said. "You sleep, I'll watch over you." Seraphina placed her phone aside and actually lay down. It wasn't that she didn't want to refuse, but she was genuinely scared. After lying down, she could clearly hear the rustling sound of Adrien turning pages on the other side. Unconsciously, she drifted into dreams. The next morning, her phone had run out of battery and the screen was black. Seraphina plugged her phone into charge, went to the bathroom to wash up, and by the time she returned, it could be turned on. As soon as she turned it on, several messages popped up. One was from Julian. Another was from Adrien. Julian: "Explain yourself this morning." Some extremists even rushed into the neighborhood and threw vegetable leaves at Lily. Seraphina didn't even bother with him. She looked at the next message. Adrien: "All the procedures for going abroad are complete. There's just one more formality left. Later, I'll pick you up and take you to handle it." Seraphina: "Okay, what specific time?" Adrien: "Around 2 p.m. It can be done quickly." Seraphina sent a thank you emoji. Around 9 o'clock, she suddenly received a message from a leaner. "Can't you just drop the case? You're fine anyway. You just wanted to use this incident to get Julian's attention now that you've achieved your goal. Just consider it, Mom begging you. Lily's health is poor, and now those people are blocking the house, not leaving. Lily can't even get to the hospital." Seraphina sneered. "Mom, have you ever considered that if I hadn't been lucky, I might already be sold off to some remote mountain forest by now?" "It wouldn't come to that," Eleanor said. "Besides, you're fine now, aren't you?" "Just as expected." Seraphina replied. "Anyway, I've already filed the case, and I won't withdraw it. Since Liliana Fletcher keeps insisting she didn't do it, she shouldn't be afraid of the investigation. But now those people are blocking the door. Lily is hiding in her room crying she wants to apologize to you. How can you be so selfish? She cares about you, and you," Seraphina chuckled lightly. "The police found her because the two people who kidnapped me confessed she was the mastermind. Right now, there's just no direct evidence proving she's the mastermind. If Liliana really didn't do it, I think she should be able to produce evidence. As for what she's experiencing now, Mom, it will pass eventually. Look, I'm fine too, right? What happened in between doesn't matter." Then, she directly hung up and blocked a leaner. There was absolutely nothing left here for her to cherish. At 11 in the morning, Adrien arrived, holding a lunch box. "Thought you might want lunch. Let's eat, then go handle the procedure," Adrien said. Seraphina smiled. "Adrien, you're such a good person." People who were so dedicated and considerate towards others were rare these days. Adrien looked at her. "Giving me the good person card? That's not what I meant." Seraphina's mood, which hadn't fully recovered, couldn't help but lift into a smile at Adrien's question. "Really, that's not what I meant." Adrien hummed in acknowledgement. "I understand." Chapter 18. Adrien simply nodded lightly. "Let's eat first." Seraphina was about to reach out and open the lunchbox when Adrien simultaneously prepared to open it too. The moment their fingers touched, it felt like a jolt of electricity passed between them. Seraphina quickly withdrew her fingers. "Adrien, I'm already grateful you brought me lunch. I can take it out myself." Adrien, however, glanced sideways at her. "I haven't eaten lunch either." Seraphina paused slightly, realizing his meaning. The tension she felt earlier instantly dissipated. "Adrien has been working hard lately. You really need to eat properly." Adrien nodded non-committally, arranging the food on the table and taking out 2 portions of soup. These two soups are both calming and aid digestion. See which one you prefer. Seraphina felt slightly touched, guessing Adrien was doing this because of yesterday's incident. Lowering her head to look at the two soups, she chose one and looked up with a bright smile. Thank you, Adrien. Adrien's movements paused slightly. Eat first. We'll rest a bit after eating before going to handle the procedure. Seraphina nodded. Once the procedure was completed, all that remained was to wait for Professor Albright and the others to depart together. This procedure should have been finished long ago, but had been delayed until now. Seraphina prayed inwardly for the procedure to be completed quickly so she could leave sooner. During the meal, neither of them spoke. For a while, only the occasional sound of spoons touching bowls remained. After lunch, Seraphina checked the time. It was just past 12 p.m. She hesitated for a moment. Adrien, maybe I should get a room for you too, so you can rest first? At this time, the administrative office likely wasn't open yet. Adrien lowered his gaze, gathered the bowls and chopsticks from the table, and placed them aside. No need, you go rest first. Lend me your table for a bit. I need to handle some things. Seeing him actually take out his laptop as he spoke, Seraphina didn't insist further, only advising with some concern. Adrien should still rest properly. These past few days, she had wasted a lot of his time. It was already a very busy period before going abroad. Adrien looked up, meeting her guilty eyes, paused slightly, then continued working, opening his computer. It's just some minor things. Don't worry, my schedule has been very regular these years. Seraphina saw he didn't want to elaborate and didn't push, but couldn't help thinking inwardly. Can someone doing drug experiments really maintain a regular schedule? Perhaps because the lunch was overly satisfying, or because Adrien was in the outer room, Seraphina felt this afternoon nap was exceptionally comfortable, even more so than sleeping longer last night. Fortunately, although she slept comfortably, she still woke up on time. Checking her phone, it was already 1:30 p.m. She got up, washed her face, changed clothes, and went out. She saw Adrien still in the outer room, but different from before. He was slightly hunched over the table, likely asleep. Hearing Seraphina's movement, Adrien straightened up. Awake, Seraphina felt a bit embarrassed. Did I wake you, Adrien? Chapter 19. Adrien didn't answer, just glanced at the time. Perfect timing. Let's go now and get it done early. Seraphina was also thinking about getting things done quickly and didn't dwell on the previous matter, only reminding him, does Adrien want to freshen up too? To clear your head. Adrien didn't refuse her kindness, quickly washed up, and they went to the administrative office together. The staff member at the office seemed quite familiar with Adrien, greeting him with a smile upon seeing him. Why did you come in person? Then looked at Seraphina, a hint of amazement in their eyes before looking back at Adrien. No wonder you came personally. Seraphina felt a bit embarrassed but didn't know what to say. Adrien introduced briefly, this is my junior colleague, an important member of our team. The staff member retracted the ambiguous expression, becoming professional. Is there something that hasn't been processed yet? Adrien handed over the prepared materials. One procedure was missing. Here are the documents. After carefully reviewing them, the staff member couldn't help but remark, you really insist on doing everything perfectly. Many people still prepare these materials incorrectly even after we teach them over and over. While speaking, they signed and stamped the documents, handed them back, and after operating the computer, said to the two, my side is done. Check from your personal terminals. Even before they finished speaking, Adrien had already checked. He nodded at Seraphina. It's all done now. Seraphina, who had been holding her breath slightly, finally relaxed completely. She gave Adrien a grateful smile and then thanked the staff member. Thank you for your trouble. The staff member waved their hands repeatedly. No need to thank me, it's part of the job. Walking out of the office, holding the documents Adrien had just handed her, Seraphina took a deep breath and broke into a radiant smile. Finally, everything was completed. After carefully and seriously reviewing the documents, Seraphina handed them back to Adrien with both hands. Meeting Adrien's puzzled gaze, she spoke frankly, if I keep them, I'm worried something else might happen. It's better if you hold on to them, I'll feel more at ease. Adrien's gaze paused slightly. Seeing the documents handed to him with both hands, he reached out and took them. Don't worry. For the next few days, I'll have people keep an eye on your hotel. If you're worried, you can arrange for 2 people to stay in the rooms next to yours. After saying this, before Seraphina could speak, he added first, "Rest assured, if you're willing to pay, I won't stop you." Seraphina was taken aback by his words, then couldn't help laughing. "Then thank you very much, Adrien." Seeing that all procedures were completed and all that remained was departure, Seraphina didn't want any more trouble at this point and accepted Adrien's suggestion to have people stationed at the hotel. After discussing these arrangements, Seraphina looked at Adrien again. "Does Adrien have anything planned later?" Adrien lowered his gaze to look at her. "Is there something you need?" Seeing him respond with a question, Seraphina felt a bit embarrassed. "I've troubled Adrien so much recently. I wanted to treat you to a meal." After saying this, she added jokingly, "I'll treat Adrien to authentic local food now. Once we go abroad, even if Adrien asks me to treat, I won't be able to." Then she quickly added, "If Adrien is busy, another day is fine too. I should be free from now on, just reviewing the materials Adrien gave me at the hotel. When Adrien is free, just let me know." "Then let's make it today," Adrien's slightly cool voice came. Chapter 20. After speaking, Seraphina realized her invitation might have been inappropriate. Lately, Adrien must have been busy with the team's departure matters. Not only the procedures for each person going abroad, but also coordinating with foreign counterparts and handling various domestic transitions, he must be very busy. Yet because of her, he had wasted so much time. Now, asking him for a meal, wasn't she wasting even more of his time? Unexpectedly, she heard Adrien's crisp agreement. She looked up in surprise, meeting his earnest gaze fixed upon her. She felt a bit uncomfortable and averted her eyes. Seraphina asked, "Does Adrien have things to do next? Will this delay your work?" Adrien shook his head slightly, stating frankly, "I do have some things." Seraphina was about to suggest rescheduling. Then she heard Adrien continue, "But they are tasks that can be completed on the computer. Why don't we find a place? I can work and you can continue studying. If you don't understand something, you can ask me directly. Asking in person should be much better than asking over the phone." Hearing him say this, Seraphina hesitated slightly, then agreed. Otherwise, she felt Adrien would have to come pick her up from the hotel again, which would be more trouble for him. Having decided, Seraphina thought about where she wanted to take him, hesitating slightly. "Should we go to the restaurant now, or go back to my hotel first?" In Seraphina's view, going to her hotel would be more convenient, but she didn't know if Adrien would have any objections. If Seraphina doesn't mind, going to your hotel should be more convenient. Seeing that he shared her thought, Seraphina immediately broke into a radiant smile. "Of course, I don't mind." She added, Chinese letter, conveniently, "The documents Adrien gave me earlier are also at the hotel, so I can look at the physical copies directly." Having confirmed the location, the two returned to the hotel. However, just as they reached the hotel entrance, a figure rushed out, nearly separating them. "Seraphina Fletcher, where did you go? Your sister is so upset right now. And you still have the mood to go out with another man?" It was Eliner's voice. Eliner appearing here gave Seraphina a feeling of surprise, yet not entirely unexpected. They were accustomed to stepping on her to comfort Liliana. How could they give up on making her drop the case? However, the content of her words made Seraphina frown involuntarily. Would a woman who truly treated her daughter as just a daughter say something like, "Go out with another man," in such a public place? Feeling the gazes subtly cast from the lobby, Seraphina looked at Eliner. "Is that so? In your opinion, should work be divided into male companies and female companies in the future? Otherwise, going out with colleagues will be questioned. Why go out with someone of the opposite sex?" "What nonsense are you talking about?" Eliner didn't understand what she was saying, only thinking of Liliana's aggrieved and sad appearance at home before she came over. "Your sister has been wanting to apologize to you, and what did you do? You actually dared to block me." Speaking of this, Eliner was very angry. Nothing even happened, just drop the case and be done with it. But Seraphina insisted on being relentless, even daring to block her own mother. Chapter 21. Thinking of this, her gaze towards Seraphina became increasingly hostile. "I told you, nothing happened. You wanted to use this incident to get Julian's attention, and you've achieved your goal. What more do you want? Are you really going to continue being this unreasonable?" Facing the woman's furious expression, yet utterly unaware that her previous words could very well be the first malicious rumor spread about her daughter. Seraphina suddenly found it somewhat amusing. Is that so? In your eyes, if nothing happened, then it's fine. So, if a murderer intends to kill someone, but the victim is clever and avoids being killed, the murderer is no longer a murderer. This has nothing to do with murderers. Alina panicked for a moment, then quickly hardened again. What does this have to do with murderers? Don't talk nonsense here. Nonsense, Seraphina chuckled lightly. Is it really nonsense? You know clearly in your heart, and Liliana Fletcher knows even more clearly. Come to think of it, those two men probably haven't dared to say what Liliana Fletcher paid them for, right? Seraphina leaned closer to Alina, whispering, why don't you go back and ask her properly, what exactly did she want them to do? Alina's heart panicked for a moment. What could it be? Didn't you just want to attract Julian's attention? What does this have to do with your sister? Seeing her still blindly defending Liliana even now, Seraphina suddenly felt it was pointless. She just spoke calmly. If it's nothing, you should still go back and ask properly. Some things, knowing earlier allows for earlier planning. Otherwise, if something is really uncovered, who knows if Liliana's body can withstand going to the police station? Seraphina's words were quite meaningful. Alina, however, seemed to instantly grasp something. Wouldn't it be better if you just dropped the case earlier? That's your sister, do you really have to destroy her to be satisfied? Madam, a cool voice interjected. Only then did Alina remember that Seraphina had entered with a man just now. She was about to retort, our family's business. Her gaze shifted over and abruptly stopped. Previously, it was this man who had delivered the recording pen. She then looked back at Seraphina. Did you hear? Hurry up and drop the case, Adrien's voice sounded again. Madam, have you perhaps not consulted a lawyer? Alina didn't want to talk to him, but hearing him say this, she felt a bit panicked inwardly, forcing herself to remain calm. What does this have to do with a lawyer? Family scandals shouldn't be aired in public. I'm giving her a chance to correct herself. If this really gets blown up with lawyers, will Seraphina Fletcher still have any reputation left? Everyone will know she's someone who framed her own sister. Hearing her say this, Seraphina felt her heart was calm, only thinking, so in their view, even with the evidence from those two kidnappers, this could still be characterized as me framing my own sister. Adrien's voice didn't stop. If Madam had consulted a lawyer, you should know that kidnapping is a public prosecution case. Public prosecution? What public prosecution? Alina panicked instantly, yet still stubbornly insisted. This is just our family matter. What does it have to do with public prosecution? Adrien looked at her with a hint of pity. If a husband kills his wife and claims it's a domestic dispute afterward, does the law support that? What nonsense are you talking about? What does this have to do with our family's situation? Alina was extremely flustered, hastily dropping a sentence. There's nothing to say to people like you. Then she hurriedly left. Chapter 22, looking at Alina's hasty and somewhat flustered retreating back, Seraphina scoffed, then turned to Adrien. Sorry, Adrien, for making you encounter this kind of thing again. It seemed that ever since interacting with her, he was always witnessing her various confrontations with her family. Hearing this, Adrien only looked at her calmly. Every family has its own troubles. I've said this before, you don't need to feel sorry for these things. Seraphina naturally knew he had said this before, but having Adrien waste his time because of her issues repeatedly, and even having to listen to these people's insults alongside her, naturally made her feel somewhat ashamed. But Adrien's voice carried absolute certainty. Although his expression remained calm, the determination in his words was unmistakably conveyed to Seraphina's ears. Adrien, thank you, really. If it weren't for her good friend Chloe, if it weren't for Adrien, facing the Fletchers and Julian alone, although she felt she might not lose out, she would still feel a sense of powerlessness. This powerlessness wasn't about her own inability, but a Chinese letter bewildered feeling of being subtly abandoned by the world. Although the negative emotions might only last a moment, she was still very grateful that there were people around her who supported her. I'm your senior. Naturally, I should look after my junior colleague. If you have any problems in the future, feel free to come to me. Even from a professional standpoint, I am the leader of this team. If there are any issues, Addressing them directly with me and resolving them early can prevent hidden dangers later, which is more beneficial for our work, isn't it? Listening to Adrien even connecting solving her problems to team safety, Seraphina couldn't help but laugh. Okay, thank you, Adrien. I'll remember that. Adrien is clearly just a good person, willing to lend a helping hand to others, yet he has to awkwardly frame it as being for the team, Seraphina thought, a small sense of triumph in discovering Adrien's true nature showing on her lips. Just as Adrien had said, during the afternoon, he was constantly handling various matters on his computer, sometimes even taking calls or having brief video meetings. Seraphina sat nearby, looking through the materials Adrien had prepared for her earlier. After another brief video meeting, Adrien felt a bit embarrassed. Making you listen to so much, is it disturbing you? He had noticed earlier that Seraphina was very seriously reading the materials he had delivered. He couldn't help but wonder if staying here with her was the wrong decision. Seraphina was engrossed in the documents. Hearing him say this unexpectedly, she paused slightly, then couldn't help laughing. Only when Adrien awkwardly averted his gaze did Seraphina finally speak. What is Adrien talking about? It's just reading some materials, not performing some precision operation. Adrien shouldn't worry about me eavesdropping on any of your secrets. Seraphina had also tried her best to confirm earlier that Adrien's tasks didn't involve any secrets, which is why she stayed in the outer room instead of going back to the bedroom. This was also a habit of hers. If she wanted to quickly and wholeheartedly memorize something, she tried to be in a more conducive learning environment. Receiving Seraphina's affirmative reply, Adrien felt relieved and replied with a faint smile. Naturally, there are no secrets. If Seraphina wants to listen, you can listen anytime. Seraphina took it as politeness, smiled back at him, and returned to her documents. Adrien had prepared this information very thoroughly. Even though she hadn't worked in this field for 5 years, reading it was completely effortless. Chapter 23, as she was reading, she suddenly heard Adrien speak from the side. Seraphina, you probably haven't given up studying pharmacology these past 5 years, have you? Seraphina's fingers paused on the page, curling slightly. She looked over with a smile. Why does Adrien say that? Adrien looked up, meeting her gaze. There were some hidden emotions within, difficult to decipher at the moment. Adrien didn't try to delve deeper, only saying seriously, I compiled this information, so naturally, I understand its difficulty and content. If someone truly hadn't paid attention to pharmacology for 5 years, how could they read this material so effortlessly? When selecting members for this project group, there were many who had been working continuously for 5 years, yet still couldn't understand much of it. Seraphina just smiled without answering, glancing at the material. It's because Adrien summarized it well. Adrien didn't inquire further. They both returned to their respective tasks, but this time, the thoughts in their hearts were clearer only to themselves. Time passed unknowingly, reaching 5 p.m. Seraphina placed a bookmark on the page she just finished and looked at Adrien. Adrien, shall we go eat now? Adrien rubbed his temples and glanced at the time. It was already 5 p.m. He nodded in agreement. Okay, let's go now. Immediately, they both gathered their belongings, preparing to leave. Before heading out, Seraphina felt a bit embarrassed. Troubling Adrien to drive again. These past years, she rarely had opportunities to go out by herself, let alone drive. She had initially thought about renting a car, but since she wouldn't be staying in the country for long, it wasn't worth the extra effort. She hadn't expected that recently, it was always Adrien helping her drive. Adrien put his things away, reminded Seraphina to bring hers, then finally spoke, It's a small matter. After saying this, he looked seriously at Seraphina. Seraphina doesn't need to feel too burdened psychologically. I remember Seraphina has a friend. However you interact with that friend, you can interact with me in the same way. In the future, our group will be abroad. We will be the most trustworthy people for each other, relatively speaking. Seraphina doesn't need to have too many reservations. Then, thank you very much, Adrien. This time, Seraphina invited Adrien to a place she used to love during her studies. But after getting married, she had fewer chances to go out. Whenever she did go out, if there was an opportunity to go to a restaurant, it was always to places Julian liked, not places she liked. She had mentioned once before wanting to go to her favorite student-era spot. but Julian had just refused impatiently. The assistant already arranged everything. Why change restaurants now? Even when Seraphina suggested booking this place next time, Julian was very impatient. We always eat at this restaurant. I eat there often, my friends all like it too. What kind of place are you talking about? Never even heard of it. After being rejected twice by Julian, Seraphina never brought it up again. Chapter 24, arriving at the restaurant entrance calling it a hotel felt like a stretch. It was more like a diner. The diner was located in a relatively remote area. If Seraphina's current hotel hadn't been pushed towards the outskirts to secure a large plot of land, it probably wouldn't have been convenient for them to get here at all. Seraphina only realized this upon arrival. Adrien, your drive back might take longer. Adrien glanced at the diner before them. The first two characters on the sign were missing, leaving only the last two characters, Chinese letter, restaurant. From the outside, it looked rather dilapidated, strongly resembling the small village diners he had seen during company charity events. But the entire diner was kept very clean. 2 potted plants stood by the entrance, and a Chinese letter fortune character sticker from Chinese New Year was still on the door, adding a unique atmosphere. It's fine. I have some things to handle tomorrow anyway. I'll just book a room at the hotel tonight. Hearing him say this eased some of Seraphina's guilt. She led Adrien inside. As they walked, she introduced, "During my studies, I really liked this place. It's just a pity I never had the chance to come back later." As they walked inside, a young waiter saw them and greeted them. "Where would you two like to sit? There are private rooms upstairs, quieter. Downstairs here is livelier with more people." Seraphina glanced at Adrien. Where would Adrien prefer to sit? Adrien lowered his gaze to look at her. Seraphina can decide. I'm the guest, following the host's lead. His words brought a smile to her lips. Seraphina looked at the waiter. Let's sit at the last table by the window. The waiter seemed slightly stunned, subconsciously glancing at the last window table. Unless one specifically looked for it, it wouldn't be visible from the outside. But his actions were quick. Please follow me, you two. They followed the waiter towards the window table. The so-called last window seat was actually in a corner near the wall. But what made this spot clever was that right next to it was a liquor cabinet owned by the shop, displaying not expensive liquors, but various creatively packaged empty bottles. And in front of it, due to a slightly protruding decorative pillar, there was some distance from the adjacent table, making it an excellent spot for quiet enjoyment amidst the bustle. The window was perfectly placed here, offering a convenient view of the scenery outside. Although the scenery consisted only of ordinary greenery and flowers, looking out from here inexplicably brought a sense of peace. Leading them to the table, the waiter brought the menu. After asking about Adrien's dietary restrictions, Seraphina ordered a few dishes. Adrien, see if there's anything else you'd like. Adrien glanced at the menu and asked the waiter, do you have any soups that are good for the stomach? The waiter quickly replied, we have pumpkin and yam. We can make pumpkin millet congee or yam and pork rib soup. Adrien looked back at Seraphina. Which does Seraphina prefer? Seraphina paused slightly, understanding he was ordering for her. Touched by his thoughtfulness, she chose the pumpkin millet congee. Let's have something sweet to sweeten the palate. Once the menu was finalized, the waiter left. Adrien looked at Seraphina. This spot is excellent. Finding it shows Seraphina is quite capable too. Hearing this tone, almost like coaxing a child, Seraphina couldn't help but laugh. Does Adrien often coax children? Chapter 25, the smile on Adrien's lips faltered slightly. Seeing him seemingly provoked, Seraphina found it amusing but couldn't help the curve of her lips. Thank you, Adrien. Adrien cleared his throat lightly, looking out at the scenery. Though it's just ordinary flowers and plants outside, it has a certain charm. Seeing him change the subject so abruptly, Seraphina chuckled secretly, picked up his topic, and also looked out the window. During university, I accidentally came into this restaurant, sat at this very spot, and that's how I remembered this place. They chatted casually about the view outside for a bit. The waiter soon brought tea and pre-meal snacks. Seraphina glanced at them, then looked at Adrien. These are rather common snacks. Adrien can try them. If you don't like them, just wait for the main dishes. Seraphina had previously asked the owner about the pre-meal snacks. The owner said they had a fixed supplier and didn't make them in-house. Plus, these didn't seem like things Adrien would typically eat. Seraphina, fearing he might force himself out of politeness, added this remark. She specifically explained, "The owner said these are sourced from others." The waiter glanced curiously at Seraphina, placed the dishes down, and left. Seraphina paid no mind, tried a pre-meal snack but looked puzzled. Adrien quickly looked at her. "What's wrong? Is something not right?" Seraphina shook her head slightly, hesitating. It doesn't seem like the previous taste. But she wasn't sure if they had truly changed suppliers or if it had just been too long since she last came, making her think they had changed. Hearing her say this, Adrien curiously picked one up too and gave a fair assessment. The taste indeed warrants Seraphina's praise. His comment interrupted Seraphina's thoughts, making her laugh. If Adrien likes it, eat more. If not, just wait for their main dishes. The chef's cooking is really delicious. As they talked, someone else came to serve food. It wasn't the previous waiter, but a middle-aged woman. After placing the dish aside, the woman glanced casually at Seraphina and immediately spoke. "It's Sera, you haven't been here in quite a while." Seraphina's movement paused. She looked up and saw it was indeed the owner's wife, Mrs. Gable. She immediately stood up excitedly too. "Mrs. Gable." After calling out Mrs. Gable, she didn't know what else to say. Mrs. Gable, however, seemed very excited. "Just now, Lee said someone knew the back table without looking. I was curious who it could be. Lee has been working here for 3 or 4 years. Later, when I heard you mention the snacks used to be sourced from others, my heart was itching. I wanted to come see, and unexpectedly, it's you, Sera." Mrs. Gable frankly explained why she came over. She looked at Seraphina again, frowning slightly. "Sera, have you not been resting well lately? You don't look too well." The smile on Seraphina's face faltered slightly. Mrs. Gable had always been very direct and genuinely concerned about her customers, never saying things just to please. Besides, this didn't sound like a pleasing remark. Could someone she hadn't seen in a long time tell at first glance that her complexion wasn't good? Seeing her like this, Mrs. Gable felt even more sympathetic. "Ah, whatever happened is in the past. Later, I'll have your uncle make you some chicken soup. You need to nourish yourself properly." Chapter 26, Seraphina forced a slight smile. "Then thank you, Mr. Gable, for the chicken soup." "What's there to thank? When you weren't coming, you're Mr. Gable was wondering why he hadn't seen you. After chatting concernedly with Seraphina for a while, Mrs. Gable finally looked at Adrien beside her, then back at Seraphina. "And this is..." Mrs. Gable wasn't overly talkative, but seeing how well this young man treated Sera just now, she couldn't help but ask. Seraphina paused, then introduced, "This is my senior colleague, also the head of my future work team." Mrs. Gable instantly changed her tune. "Oh, so it's Sera's leader. Sera is such a good girl. When my kid was struggling with studies back then, Sera helped out so much. Later, when my sister's kid was choosing a university major, Sera also gave lots of advice." Speaking of this, she looked at Seraphina again. "Sera, you haven't come by in a while. That kid has graduated from university and is working now. He came by recently and mentioned he should properly thank you." Seraphina listened with a gentle smile. The feeling of having done something that people remembered was truly wonderful. It was her own hard work that led to her success. I just gave some advice at the time. Mrs. Gable strongly disagreed. "The advice you gave was the best advice. Later, some of that kid's classmates studied the majors she initially considered, and now they're having trouble finding jobs." Mrs. Gable was polite and quickly said, "Sera, you two eat first. I'll go ask Mr. Gable to make another chicken soup." "Okay, thank you then." Seraphina smiled and thanked her. "What's there to thank? Eat slowly, just let us know if you need anything." After Mrs. Gable left, Seraphina looked apologetically at Adrien. "Mrs. Gable is quite enthusiastic. She didn't mean to pry into your information, Adrien." Adrien shook his head slightly. "It's clear she genuinely cares about you." Seraphina fell silent for a moment, then softly explained, "During university, I had to go to a pharmaceutical base. Passing by here, I ate here once. That time, it wasn't so much the food that left a deep impression, but rather the love the family showed for their daughter that captured her steps and her heart." Seraphina lowered her gaze slightly before speaking again. "It happened that they were worrying about their child's studies. It was my first time seeing it, so I couldn't help but offer some suggestions." Unexpectedly, Mrs. Gable and her husband were very enthusiastic and grateful. They immediately cooked 4 large dishes and made a soup for her. When she tried to pay, they firmly refused, even declaring, "Wouldn't that be like forcing a sale?" Later, whenever Seraphina came by, she would habitually eat here. Sometimes she would also encounter the little girl. Calculating the time, that little girl should be in high school now. Listening to Seraphina's soft narration, Adrien couldn't help but picture a young girl, not much older herself, tutoring another little girl, feeling a bit overwhelmed when thanked. A light chuckle escaped his lips. "You did well. They recognize your kindness." Seraphina felt a bit embarrassed by his words. "It's Mrs. Gable and Mr. Gable who are kind people." Speaking of which, Adrien looked puzzled. "Mr. Gable, is that how you address the owner?" Thinking about this, Seraphina couldn't help but want to laugh. "Originally, I called them owner and Mrs. Owner. But later, the little girl said it sounded too distant. Since I was used to it, I simply changed the address to Mr. Gable." Adrien hadn't expected this backstory and found it quite novel. His junior colleague used to have such vitality. Chapter 27, Seraphina urged Adrien, "Adrien, eat something first. Because of my matter, you had to wait hungry for a while." Adrien waved it off nonchalantly. "Knowing these things makes me happy." Seraphina looked up puzzled, but only saw Adrien using his long fingers to pick up a piece of chicken from the dish Mrs. Gable had just served, not looking at her. Hesitating for a moment, she didn't press further, just introduced, "The owner has many signature dishes. Every customer feels their favorite dish is the owner's signature. Adrien, try them and see which one you think is the signature dish." After chewing, Adrien gave high praise. "Very delicious, makes one want to keep eating." Only then did he look back at her, his eyes filled with curiosity. "Which dish does Seraphina think is the signature?" Seraphina chuckled smugly. "Adrien has to figure that out himself. Only after Adrien states yours will I state mine." Her current demeanor seemed much more relaxed than before. Adrien didn't press further, just asked again, "Do they offer delivery service?" "Delivery." Seraphina hesitated. "They didn't used to, I don't know about now. Does Adrien want it delivered to your place? I'm afraid it might be a bit far." Adrien shook his head gently. "Delivering to the hotel should be closer." Seraphina was about to offer to arrange for someone to help deliver when a voice suddenly interjected. "Adrien, you're eating here too?" Seraphina looked up and saw a group of young people, both men and women, about 5 or 6 of them. She glanced at Adrien. Adrien turned around and nodded slightly. "You came for dinner too?" The woman who spoke earlier nodded. "We're going abroad soon, so we're having another gathering. The food here is indeed quite good." "You picked a great place." Adrien suddenly offered this praise. The group opposite seemed surprised, then quickly smiled. "Adrien thinks this place is good too, right? Told you I wasn't lying." The group chatted and laughed, about to say goodbye and leave. Seraphina, however, noticed one man among them who had been looking strangely at their table from the beginning. His feet hadn't moved. Sure enough, the next moment, that man spoke. "Adrien, who is this opposite you?" Adrien frowned. "Does this concern you?" The others also sensed something was wrong and tried to pull the man away. "All right, Adrien is having a meal, we're having a meal too. Don't tell me you don't want to treat us today and are deliberately stalling here." Several people laughed and joked, trying to lead the man away, but unexpectedly, he struggled free from the others' grasp and walked towards them instead. "Adrien, is the person opposite you the last one to join your team?" Seeing the other party was coming directly at her, Seraphina calmly raised her eyes, first glancing at Adrien, signaling with her eyes, "What's this situation?" Adrien returned a reassuring look, then turned back to the newcomer. "Does this concern you?" Being questioned twice with the same words by Adrien, the newcomer actually laughed instead, but his smile was full of malice. "Adrien doesn't even dare say who she is." "What?" Feeling guilty. "Afraid everyone will find out she got into the team because of you." Chapter 28, as soon as the man finished speaking, 2 women immediately rushed over to pull him away. "Howard Wallace, what are you doing?" The other person apologized to Seraphina. "Sorry, miss, he's in the wrong. We'll talk to him properly when we get back." The others also reacted, quickly trying to pull the man away. Howard might not know, but didn't they? It was clearly Professor Albright who chose the candidate first. Adrien was responsible for the follow-up contact. Professor Albright had many things to handle, Routine communication tasks certainly couldn't be done by the professor himself. Howard, however, continued to struggle. What? Adrien still doesn't dare give me an answer. Isn't it because you know clearly in your heart that she got into the team because of you, that she squeezed out others who were genuinely capable? Is that so? Where did you get this conclusion? Seraphina looked over with disgust in her eyes. Just because you saw I'm a woman, therefore, my joining the team must be because I have connections with Adrien. Seraphina had encountered people like this before. There were always those who, when they weren't skilled enough, started slandering in various ways. And if the person they were inferior to was a woman, the method of slander seemed even simpler. Just make ambiguous accusations against women, spread malicious rumors, as if women could never clear their names no matter how they tried to prove themselves. Even if he was later forced to apologize, he would just say he heard it from somewhere. The punishment for their defamation was often light, which only fueled their arrogance. How did I see it? Isn't this the truth? Howard, taking advantage of the others being stunned by Seraphina's words, broke free again. If it weren't for Adrien, how could you have gotten into this team? Seeing that pulling him away wasn't working, the others couldn't be bothered anymore. Howard Wallace, you yourself lack the ability and were eliminated by Professor Albright. Now you're still making trouble here unreasonably. Exactly, your skills weren't enough, you got eliminated, yet you blame others for being selected. By your logic, does that mean all of us who were selected also got in through various connections? The group felt quite angry too. Originally, they thought, we were colleagues, classmates before. Even though he wasn't selected for the trip abroad, if there are opportunities later, we'll definitely collaborate again. Moreover, this research still needed integration with domestic efforts later. So they thought of gathering together, partly to comfort him. They never expected Howard would directly confront Adrien, let alone immediately start spreading malicious rumors about the lady opposite him. At this moment, the two female colleagues present looked terrible, and the other team members also looked extremely grim. The core figures in their team were Professor Albright and Adrien. For both professional and personal reasons, they didn't want to clash with Adrien. Yet, Howard, while with them, rushed forward with such a malicious pretext. Forget the female colleagues not believing it, they didn't believe it either. Did he really think passing Professor Albright's selection was that easy? You all got selected, so naturally you feel indifferent. Howard glanced at the group, then pointed at Seraphina. But her, she got in through connections. Why should she push me out? If you were pushed out by her, wouldn't you feel it's unfair? Hearing him say this, the other two female colleagues only found it more ridiculous. Is it because you feel it's unfair, or is it just that you resent the person who replaced you being a woman? Saying this, both sneered simultaneously. Speaking of which, Howard Wallace, have you secretly badmouthed us too behind our backs? It suddenly occurred to both of them. Facing a stranger in front of Adrien, Howard dared to question and spread rumors directly. Would he have said nasty things about them behind their backs too? After speaking, both stared intently at Howard, seeing the fleeting discomfort of being exposed flash across his face. They instantly felt even colder. You're not the only one eliminated from this project. Have any of the others made such a scene? That's because they don't know, Chapter 29, don't know what? Don't know I'm a woman. Seraphina asked again. Of course, it's not just that Howard looked over again, but only glanced at her disdainfully, then turned back to Adrien. Adrien, if you cancel her spot now, I'll keep this matter buried, absolutely won't say anything, won't affect your reputation. Adrien had wanted to speak from the beginning, but was stopped by Seraphina. He understood Seraphina wanted to know what else this person could say, so he remained silent. Now, however, he spoke coldly. What matter? The matter of you publicly defaming and spreading rumors right in front of us? Rest assured, I will not let this go. Howard hadn't expected this outcome and immediately became angry. Calling you Adrien gives you face. At your age, can you really hold the position of senior colleague securely? Cancel her spot, and let's pretend the past didn't happen. You can still be our senior, and I'll follow your instructions in the future. At this point, the others also understood his intention. His real goal wasn't to get Adrien to cancel Seraphina's spot, but to have himself replace Seraphina. Just as Seraphina was about to speak, several people hurried over from the other side. What are you people doing? If you're eating, eat. If not, get out what's with causing trouble in our restaurant. Exactly causing trouble in our place. Haven't you heard who frequents our restaurant? The people rushing over were even holding kitchen utensils. Mrs. Gable yelled at the group, then came over to check on Seraphina. Sera, are you okay? Seraphina shook her head slightly. Mrs. Gable, I'm fine. You all go back to work. What work? If you really got bullied in our restaurant, my girl will throw a fit at me later. Hearing Mrs. Gable's words, Seraphina felt slightly relieved but also amused. It's really okay, Mrs. Gable. Just some work disagreement. Mrs. Gable remained unconvinced. The owner, Mr. Gable, was even more boisterous. Sera girl, don't be afraid daring to cause trouble in our restaurant. They must be tired of living. Seraphina felt even more amused. Mr. Gable, it really is just work stuff. You should hurry back to cooking. I'm still waiting to eat Mr. Gable's dishes. Hearing Seraphina say this, Mr. Gable genuinely hesitated. Seeing Seraphina trying to persuade them to leave, Adrien also chimed in. It is indeed work-related. He gestured to the other colleagues. The other colleagues quickly nodded. Yes, Uncle Auntie, it's all work stuff. It really is work stuff. Someone even blurted out. Uncle Auntie, you've seen difficult customers, we've just encountered a difficult colleague. What difficult colleague? That's clearly a difficult ex-colleague. Hearing the consensus, Mrs. Gable and the others somewhat understood. They looked back at Seraphina. Well, call us if anything happens. Seraphina felt a warmth spread through her. I will, Mrs. Gable walked away, reluctantly looking back every few steps. Just before leaving completely, she turned back again. Our restaurant has surveillance cameras everywhere. Dare to cause trouble here, I'll call the police directly. After they left, Adrien looked back at the group. Whether I can hold this position securely depends on my ability, not on throwing incompetent tantrums here. If you're unconvinced, feel free to take it up with Professor Albright. Fine, Thorn, you just want to shield this woman, right? Chapter 30. As soon as Howard Wallace finished speaking, the others completely distanced themselves from him, coming up without distinguishing right from wrong to slander someone. And now, without mentioning any prior context or evidence, directly challenging his nominal superior with blatant, powerless rage. If he acts like this towards Adrien now, who knows how he'll treat them later? Howard didn't notice the others distancing themselves, still staring at Adrien. Are you sure you want to cover for her? Adrien's eyes were calm. Say whatever you want. This restaurant has surveillance. Saying this, he picked up his phone, fiddled with it for a few moments, then put it down. I've just notified my lawyer to call the police. Howard was shocked. How could you do that? Don't you care about your own reputation? Seraphina found it amusing. Shouldn't you be more worried about your own reputation? Getting arrested for spreading rumors, especially malicious sexual rumors about a new colleague and a superior, did he really think he could continue in his current job? Shut up, Howard shrieked. If it weren't for you, none of this would have happened. Seraphina remained unaffected by his emotional outburst, speaking calmly. Without me, there would be someone else. If the person who ultimately got the spot was a man, what would you say then? Seraphina glanced at him, then feigned realization. Oh, right. If it were a man, then it must be because their family has connections and yours doesn't, right? Howard shrieked again. Shut up, did you hear me? Ah, so I hit the mark. Seraphina nodded matter-of-factly. Adrien watched her. The intense emotional turmoil caused by her being insulted earlier subsided significantly, but the anger in his heart still lingered. You lack ability yourself. Your assessment score ranked last among everyone. Those ranked ahead of you haven't come forward to question anything, yet you, the one at the bottom, have the audacity to come here and spout nonsense. Adrien, angered, spoke with uncharacteristic sharpness. Seraphina looked over in surprise, whispering, Adrien, I think this is the first time I've heard you say so much. Her interjection further diffused Adrien's anger. He gave her a helpless look, realizing her mood hadn't been affected, and refocused his attention on Howard. If you had put the energy you're using now for this powerless rage into memorizing the materials back then, perhaps you could have stayed on as a domestic substitute, instead of being completely cut off from this project. Although this project involved going abroad, not everyone was leaving. After all, some matters still needed handling domestically. What domestically? It's just wasting life, being nannies for you lot. Who cares about that position? Only a fool would want that position. Howard became even more dissatisfied. The so-called domestic position, the research lab, wasn't even in the country. What use was a domestic position? Hearing his words, the expressions of the other colleagues grew even uglier. The person staying domestically was also their former colleague. Howard had even congratulated them back then. Who knew he thought this way behind their backs? Seeing this person had started attacking indiscriminately, Seraphina couldn't be bothered to speak further. There will always be people unwilling to face their failures, choosing instead to blame others. Chapter 30, one initially thought this person might have some misunderstanding, but now it seems it's just pathetic pride at play. While Seraphina and the others were unwilling to engage further, Howard hadn't stopped. Call the lawyer? Fine, call the lawyer, let's call the lawyer. I'd like to know, if outsiders find out the so-called key project not only needs to go abroad but also includes a woman who got her position through a man, what their reaction will be. As Howard spoke, a crazed look appeared in his eyes. At that time, will the so-called key project become something everyone spits on hearing him say this? Everyone's face changed simultaneously. Seraphina hadn't expected him to directly target the entire project. It wasn't about gambling on his conscience, but Professor Albright's reputation and capabilities in the field were well established. Unless Howard thought he could completely eliminate Professor Albright from the industry solely based on his false accusations. Otherwise, if he wanted to find other jobs in the future, others would have to consider whether they might need help from Professor Albright, his friends, or disciples. Moreover, which company would dare hire someone who readily reports issues, especially without evidence, and instead drags down the entire project? Howard, however, seemed increasingly pleased. Why aren't you speaking now? You all know this is troublesome. Too late, this matter, I will definitely leak it to major media outlets. Let them properly evaluate it. Clearly a domestic project. Why does it need to go abroad? Howard grew more resentful as he spoke. If it stayed domestic, couldn't we recruit more researchers, provide more job opportunities? Yet you insist on taking domestic money abroad, hiring foreigners. The colleagues, who had been watching his madness, finally couldn't hold back anymore. Howard, don't you understand yourself? Why were you so eager to apply to foreign research institutes back then? Was it to blow up their institutes? Howard Wallace had previously applied to other research institutes, but unsuccessfully. That's different. How is it different? Applying to foreign institutes is because their equipment is more advanced, wanting to access their latest industry information. Our going abroad is also because foreign equipment is more advanced, allowing us to obtain more precise data. What's the difference? Another person drawled slowly. The difference might be that some people aren't necessarily aiming for cutting-edge information abroad. Often, those who readily invoke patriotism are more likely to act for their own benefit, rather than for the so-called future of the industry or the nation. Seraphina frowned at Howard. In pharmacology, some equipment is monopolized by foreign countries. We temporarily lack the capability to break their monopoly, but drug research cannot stop because of that. Researchers are working hard to overcome these equipment barriers, while we drug researchers strive to break through pharmacological barriers with our own knowledge. What does this have to do with which country you're talking about? The results achieved are still our country's. The people achieving these results are still from our country. As for the claim of spending money abroad, it was even more laughable. Spending all the money domestically, but taking a long time to achieve results due to inaccurate data leading to errors. Versus going abroad, using others' equipment to achieve results faster. Which is better? Perhaps some might argue the economic cost is similar. But how many people could benefit if a drug is developed sooner? Saying this, Seraphina stared coldly at Howard. You're just using all sorts of excuses to cover up your despicable heart. Chapter 32, Shut up, Howard roared again, then looked at everyone present. Only then did he realize everyone else was far away from him. What? None of you believe me? Fine, then I'll leak this. I want to see how you all handle it. Even if you can whitewash going abroad, what about her? Howard pointed his finger at Seraphina, looking back at the others, yelling frantically. What about her? A woman taking the last spot. How will you explain this to the public? Unfortunately, this time, no one paid him any attention. Police sirens soon sounded outside. A man in a suit and glasses, holding a tablet, walked in. He first greeted Adrien, Mr. Thorne. Adrien nodded faintly. Attorney Finch. He then looked at Howard standing there. The restaurant has surveillance. 2 police officers who arrived later, one stayed on site while the other went to copy the surveillance footage. Soon, they all left. As he was being taken away, Howard continued to yell defiantly, "I will definitely post this online." After the people left, the colleagues standing in front felt somewhat awkward. It was supposed to be just a farewell dinner, but they never expected such an outrageous incident. After a long pause, a female colleague bowed first to Seraphina. "We're truly sorry. We didn't know he would act like this, nor could we stop him in time." Hearing this, Seraphina paused slightly, then slowly smiled. "This has nothing to do with you. We can't stop someone from suddenly venting their emotions. Besides, you were trying to stop him earlier." Seraphina had seen clearly just now. These 2 female colleagues had been trying to restrain Howard from the beginning. Unfortunately, some people with mental issues simply cannot be stopped just because you want to. Later, they even stood on her side, helping to counter Howard, which was already very good. The others also reacted, apologizing one by one. "Miss Fletcher, we're really sorry." "Adrien, we didn't expect this either. We really disturbed you." Adrien just looked up calmly. "These things, as Seraphina said, have nothing to do with you. You also didn't expect him to harbor so many thoughts. It's good that we found out early. Otherwise, if we were already abroad and he started causing trouble domestically, it would also affect our research." Saying this, Adrien paused, adding another sentence, "If he held similar hostility towards any of you, it would also affect our schedule." Hearing Adrien's words, everyone present felt a jolt of surprise. Their willingness to come out for dinner with Howard implied a decent relationship. If Howard intended to cause trouble, they, being unprepared, might have faced uncertain consequences. Seeing that everyone understood Howard's dangerous nature, Adrien didn't dwell on it further, only saying, "The food at this restaurant is quite good. You can find a private room, sit down, rest a bit, eat something to calm your nerves. For the coming period, pay attention to your own safety. Don't leave various documents lying around casually. Everyone nodded Chinese letter one after another, apologized again, and then left." After they left, Seraphina looked at Adrien. "Adrien truly deserves to be the leader of our team." A few simple words both reassured these people and prevented the possibility of internal conflict within the team. Adrien just shook his head. "It was just a coincidence we ran into him today. Otherwise, who knows what might have happened." Seraphina was also stunned. Indeed, Howard had originally invited these people. Who knew what he was planning? Soon, Mrs. Gable came again, bringing 2 more dishes and asking with concern, "What was that person doing?" "They just went to check the surveillance. I had them give all the footage." Chapter 33. Seraphina thanked Mrs. Gable, then explained, "I recently joined a project, and that person wasn't selected, so maybe he was feeling resentful." "Yo, so that's how it is," Mrs. Gable made a disgusted face. There are always people who lack ability themselves, but insist on blaming others. "Sera, don't pay them any mind. You being selected proves your ability is absolutely sufficient. If he's dissatisfied, let him go ask the person responsible for selecting you." After saying this, remembering something, she looked at Adrien. "Sir, our Sera is truly wonderful. Her abilities will definitely not disappoint you." Adrien nodded. "Rest assured, ma'am. Seraphina's abilities have been verified by our professor." Those people hadn't questioned it earlier precisely because of the professor's stringent selection process. Confirming that Adrien truly didn't have any other thoughts because of this, Mrs. Gable felt relieved. She looked back at Seraphina. "No wonder you looked so pale. You must drink a good bowl of chicken soup later." She continued to ramble. "This chicken soup, your uncle started simmering it early this morning. It's quite a coincidence. Come eat again if you have time in the future. If not, I can have someone deliver it to you." Hearing her mention delivery, Adrien seized the opportunity to ask, "Does the restaurant offer delivery service?" Mrs. Gable paused. "Delivery? No. Speaking of which," she added, "someone came before, wanting us to set up one of those online stores, but we don't know how, and we don't have that much time. But regular customers do order on their phones sometimes, mostly calling in, but people still come here to eat." After getting the answer, Adrien didn't say anything further. Once Mrs. Gable went downstairs, Seraphina couldn't help but feel curious. If he really posts this online, how will you guys respond, Adrien? Adrien simply used serving chopsticks to place a piece of newly arrived crispy fried pork into her bowl. He had noticed her gaze, fixed on this dish earlier. If he really posts it, it will be even more convenient for us, giving us more grounds to sue him for defamation and slander, and for disrupting a key national project. Seraphina hadn't expected this answer and was momentarily surprised. Adrien didn't feel there was anything wrong with his statement. Knowing Attorney Finch, the subsequent developments would likely be even more exciting. Seraphina didn't dwell on the matter further. One always encounters various absurd people in the world. She had seen enough in her previous life. So much so that witnessing Howard's actions felt like watching a sideshow, not evoking any major emotional fluctuations. Her only anger stemmed from the act of immediately resorting to sexual slander when confronting a woman. The owner's cooking was as good as ever, and the stewed chicken soup was exceptionally clear and sweet. Seraphina drank 2 large bowls with great satisfaction. When Mrs. Gable came over with the pumpkin millet congee, seeing this made her feel even more sympathetic. "I should still have someone deliver some chicken soup to you." Seraphina smiled and shook her head. "When I need it, I'll come eat at the restaurant." Thinking for a moment, she added, "Mrs. Gable, the upcoming project might require going abroad for some time." Saying this, Seraphina hesitated slightly. Faced with kindness, she always felt somewhat unsure. Mrs. Gable and her husband had the surveillance footage. They would know and hopefully wouldn't keep worrying and wondering when she would come. Mrs. Gable's actions paused slightly. "When the police checked the surveillance earlier, we saw it too. Just focus on your work, do what you want and love to do." They felt gratitude, but couldn't let their gratitude become a burden on someone's heart. Seraphina's face also broke into a smile. "Before I leave, if I have the chance, I'll come eat here." After the meal, Adrien first drove Seraphina back to the hotel. Before parting, he reminded her, "The internet might get a bit lively these next 2 days. Don't worry." Chapter 30. For the next morning, Seraphina was awakened by her phone ringing. Groggily, she picked up the phone. As soon as she answered, a voice tinged with disgust came through. "Where are you now?" "Come back quickly." Seraphina's drowsiness cleared slightly. She moved the phone away, glanced at the screen. It was Julian. She immediately hung up. Sitting up in bed, she realized she had woken up rather late today, already past 9 a.m. It had been a long time since she woke up this late, but she had slept exceptionally comfortably last night. Placing the phone aside, she went to the bathroom to wash up, drank a glass of warm water, ordered breakfast, and then stood by the window. Next, all she had to do was wait for the entire team to depart for abroad. Before that, presumably, nothing could hold her back. As for the call just now, she didn't know what Julian was freaking out about again. She had forgotten to block him earlier. Thinking of this, Seraphina went to her phone and blocked Julian's number as well. She'd just consider the time he wasn't blocked as him serving as her alarm clock. The hotel breakfast arrived quickly. After eating, Seraphina checked her phone messages and realized many people had messaged her. Or rather, someone had sent her many messages. A quick look showed messages from Alina and many from Julian. Seraphina skipped their messages first and opened the currently pinned chat Adrien's messages. "Adrien, some information is brewing online right now. Don't mind it. The team is prepared." Seraphina felt curious. No wonder Julian suddenly called her today. There was a reason. With the answer in mind, she went back to read Julian's messages. The initial text messages dripped with palpable disgust. "What have you done now? Hurry back and explain if you don't come back and clarify things, and it affects our family's reputation, you know the consequences." When she didn't reply, the bombing began. "Are you doing this deliberately to get my attention? Congratulations, you succeeded. You disgust me even more. You don't actually think spreading some gossip about yourself online will make me regret it, do you? If I wasn't worried about you damaging our family's reputation, affecting Lily's reputation, nobody would care even if you stank up the internet." Seraphina calmly skimmed through the content. The latest message, probably sent after discovering his number was blocked, showed Julian couldn't even be bothered to type. Sending a voice message instead, his tone CLEARLY Chinese letter irritable. "You dare block me too? Do you really think this will get my attention? If Lily hadn't suggested letting you explain, not jumping to conclusions, I would have already announced to the public that you are no longer the lady of the Harrington house. Seraphina only listened up to this point, replied with a message. In that case, why don't we go get the divorce certificate now? The typing indicator on the other end instantly disappeared. A voice message popped up, then quickly changed back to typing. Seraphina couldn't be bothered listening to him anymore, just enabled voice to text. It was the same old tune. Chapter 35. If you are willing to go to the hospital immediately and prepare to donate bone marrow to Lily, both our families will help suppress this matter. We absolutely won't let anyone see any trace of this news again. Below this message, there was a new one. From now on, just stay home obediently, don't go out. When you stayed home before, there wasn't any gossip. Now you've only been out for a few days, and your reputation is already this rotten. It was for your own good before. Lowering her gaze to the last sentence, for your own good, Seraphina sneered. It turns out when a person reaches the peak of speechlessness, they really do laugh inexplicably. She tapped the menu icon in the top right corner and chose block. Then she went to check Aliner's messages, which were essentially the same. What on earth did you do? Even if you don't care about face, our Fletcher family still does. Hurry up and explain clearly what happened. If our family business is implicated, don't blame us for disowning you as a daughter. Later, it seemed Liliana had persuaded her. Your sister said there must be some misunderstanding. Hurry back and explain to your sister. Do you know that your disgraceful actions outside have implicated your sister's reputation? Others might think it was her. Seeing the blame directly thrown onto her, Seraphina expressionlessly tapped the menu again and chose block. When she returned, another message from Adrien had arrived. Don't look at online comments recently. It should blow over in 2 or 3 days. He explained carefully again, we're using this incident to clear some obstacles. After saying that, another new message quickly followed. We'll post the clarification about you shortly. Seraphina doesn't need to worry. Seraphina replied with a smiley face. With Adrien and the team backing me up, I'm naturally not worried. Yesterday, Howard had kept clamoring about taking this online. Neither of them had stopped him, precisely thinking that once it blew up, they could eliminate all hidden dangers in one go. As for online content, truth and falsehood intertwine. If she lost herself just because of others' doubts, then based on what she encountered at the Harrington house over the years, she would have long ceased to exist. Seeing the smiley face reply, Adrien's hand tightened slightly. He looked towards the side. Is everything ready? The people beside him nodded in unison. Adrien, we're ready. Professor Albright will personally post a message proving he chose his own student. Our research institute will retweet it later. Since it's ready, then post it. Adrien's voice was calm but held an unquestionable authority. Hearing this, everyone sprang into action. After hearing about the incident yesterday, everyone was already furious. This matter had to be resolved quickly. If it delayed the project or even dragged it out. Thinking about this outcome, they wished they could drag Howard out for a beating. Seraphina continued reading the materials Adrien had previously provided in her room. This was the second batch of materials she had requested from him. It included not only papers from their research direction over the past 5 years, but also research topics, results, and progress from related industries or similar research fields. Looking at the timeline, it seemed some projects progressed extremely rapidly, while others seemed stagnant. Around noon, Seraphina stood up, stretched her body slightly, gazed into the distance, and heard her phone ring again. Returning to the desk, she picked up her phone and found it was a call from Chloe. Chapter 36. Why is there so much messy news online? Need me to find someone to help investigate? Chloe's concerned voice came through. A smile touched Seraphina's lips. It's fine. She recounted yesterday's events. Someone got eliminated and is resorting to dirty tricks. Chloe first fumed along with her. People like that, luckily they didn't choose him. If they had chosen him, causing embarrassment abroad would be minor. What if someone offered him some benefits and he directly leaked your research results? That would be real trouble. Seraphina quietly listened to her friend defending her. After venting her anger, Chloe spoke again. Why didn't you call me when you went to the restaurant? Seraphina hadn't been to that restaurant in a very long time either. Standing by the window, Seraphina looked at the scenery outside. Yesterday, Adrien took me to handle the last procedure. I wanted to thank him and treat him to a meal, and just happened to think of that place. Chloe's voice paused on the other end. She naturally knew why Seraphina thought of that place. It was a place she used to love going to, and also because, in recent years, the places Seraphina went were mostly where Julian wanted to go. Soon, Chloe's voice came again. Then let's go together sometime. My company has been acting crazy lately. Once I get through this busy period, things will ease up. Listening to Chloe's chirpy complaints, Seraphina couldn't help but laugh. You always say your company is crazy, yet you're still deeply in love with your work. Chloe's matter-of-fact voice came through. Of course the company might be crazy, but the salary isn't. Hearing Chloe's assured tone, Seraphina couldn't help laughing again. All right, have you been busy for long? Did you pull an all-nighter or wake up super early? Hearing Seraphina ask this, Chloe let out a wail. Definitely an all-nighter, otherwise I would have seen the morning news much earlier. She mumbled on, luckily, this phase is over now, just need to follow up. Otherwise, I really would have run away. After talking with Chloe, Seraphina felt her mood lighten considerably. Hearing her friend's voice gradually weaken, she spoke gently, go get something to eat first, sleep well. We can talk later if anything comes up. Okay, Chloe agreed readily. If anything happens, just tell me directly. Don't you dare be polite with me. Seraphina nodded, then realized Chloe couldn't see her. Don't worry, I definitely won't wrong myself. Who knows? Chloe muttered before hanging up. Seraphina looked at the scenery outside and took a deep breath. She used to wrong herself, but what did she gain? From now on, she would absolutely never wrong herself again. While Seraphina enjoyed her peace, the Fletcher household was about to explode. How dare she? How dare she block me? Julian was furious. After seeing the news early in the morning, his secretary reported it to him. He immediately went to confront Seraphina. Unexpectedly, Seraphina didn't reply to his messages and didn't answer his calls. When she finally answered after much effort, she only said a few words before hanging up directly. Angered, he called back but couldn't get through no matter what. Asking his secretary, he found out he had actually been blocked. Furious, he went back to the app to send messages, only to receive a reply, let's go get the divorce certificate, and then get blocked again. Chapter 37. Liliana lowered her eyes slightly, her voice somewhat weak. Sister might have had something on last night, so she didn't see her phone. Something on? What could she possibly have on? Julian blurted out, his expression quickly turning ugly. Could the news online? Liliana quickly interjected. How could that be? Sister isn't that kind of person. Sister must have gotten into the project team based on her own abilities. Abilities? Julian scoffed dismissively. She hasn't done anything these past 5 years. What abilities could she have? A bright light flashed in Liliana's eyes. Sister hasn't worked at all these past 5 years. Worked? What did she do? All she knew was spending money all day. When did she ever go out to work? Julian grew even more dismissive, completely forgetting why Seraphina hadn't worked in the first place. A look of ecstatic joy crossed Liliana's face, but she said, maybe sister has other channels for information. Channels for information? Julian was even more contemptuous. What could she possibly know? Elena walked in from outside, her face etched with irritation. Seeing Julian, however, she forced a smile. It's Sera being insensible. Julian managed a tight smile but didn't buy her words. Lily is younger than her, yet she's not insensible. In the end, it's just her own crooked thoughts. Elena's expression darkened further. Causing trouble outside, yet harming our family's reputation. Seeing this, Liliana quickly stepped forward to support Elena. Sister might have just momentarily thought wrongly. Thought wrongly? What could she think wrongly about? How old is she? Still momentarily thinking wrongly? After saying this, she looked pityingly at Liliana. Seraphina Fletcher herself is indecent, yet she has to implicate your reputation. If people think it's you messing around outside, the damage to your reputation would be too great. Liliana's hand gripping Elena's tightened suddenly. Elena, thinking she was angered, quickly comforted her. Don't worry, our family will definitely release a statement. We can't acknowledge such a daughter. Liliana's grip relaxed, but her expression grew even stiffer. Elena didn't notice, continuing, someone who brings disgrace to our family like this. Your father and I were too kind before, making her think she could do anything without consequences. Saying this, She looked towards Adrien, remembered something, and quickly tried to salvage the situation. Perhaps there's some misunderstanding in this matter. But it's also her own fault for not guarding her reputation well, giving others the chance to grasp at straws. Seeing Liliana also looking at him, Julian didn't say anything more, just looked grim. I'll have someone try to suppress the news. Ah, thank you for the trouble. Eleanor's face showed some surprise. Don't worry, when she comes back, I'll definitely make her apologize properly to you. Julian's expression softened. He looked pityingly at Liliana again, then said to Eleanor, It's a small matter. She should apologize to Lily. Liliana looked somewhat helpless. This doesn't really have anything to do with me. Seraphina had no idea she had now become someone who had to apologize to be allowed back home. Adrien had already sent her the specific retraction announcement and Professor Albright's account link. Seraphina, check if the content is correct. Don't mind the comments below. Looking at the content, Seraphina couldn't help but smile. Adrien was truly meticulous and considerate. If he had only sent the text, it would inevitably raise doubts about whether the actual posted content might differ, or if the posted text wasn't this one at all. But letting her see it right after posting, when there were few comments, to confirm the content was correct, truly put her at ease. She immediately replied, Thank you, Adrien, you've worked hard. It was our team's failure to handle hidden dangers properly beforehand that caused you trouble. I should represent the team and apologize to you. Chapter 38. Staring at the words displayed on the screen, Seraphina's fingers paused slightly, curling involuntarily. She recalled attending a banquet with Julian once. A young lady from a family close to the Harringtons, for some unknown reason, gave her a very cold reception. Later, when chatting about former majors, Seraphina mentioned studying medicine, only to be thoroughly belittled, as if she were inherently inferior among the wives and daughters who studied finance. At the time, although she didn't understand the source of such immense malice, she still tried to defend her major. Unfortunately, the young lady became even more arrogant afterward. And back then, because the other party was from a family close to the Harringtons, she couldn't completely tear face. When she told Julian about it upon returning, Julian was very displeased. She disgraced our Harrington family like that. Why didn't you just throw shade back at her? Hearing these words then, Seraphina felt a pang of sweetness, thinking Julian must care about her. Unexpectedly, his next sentence plunged her heart into ice water. Their family is currently competing with the Harringtons for a project. Whichever family secures the project will be able to step on the other. At a time like this, you're actually out there losing face for our family. Seraphina only remembered feeling utterly astonished and wronged at that moment, asking Julian, If that's the case, why did I never know about this? When she first married into the Harrington family, she was required to memorize all sorts of information about families connected to the Harringtons, even distant relatives. But how could the information change without anyone ever telling her? Julian, however, sounded perfectly matter-of-fact. These are business matters. What's the use of telling you? But if no one had told her these things, she wouldn't have had to swallow her anger. The fault wasn't hers, no. Seraphina lowered her gaze, looking again at the words on the screen. Perhaps her mistake lay in not putting herself first, but instead placing Julian and the Harrington family in the most important position. Her fingers moved slightly, typing a string of words on the screen. Thank you, Adrien, for apologizing to me. Perhaps Adrien would find this sentence somewhat inexplicable, but at this moment, these 8 words were what she most wanted to say. Adrien was currently urging people to investigate. This incident is clearly a conspiracy targeting our team. Howard Wallace alone couldn't possibly orchestrate something this big. Even if some people desperately sought traffic and deliberately distorted facts, rarely would anyone rashly escalate matters concerning a national-level project, especially a crucial pharmaceutical research experiment, without someone taking the lead. But now, this matter had even hit the trending topics, clearly indicating that more than just Howard was involved. Various colleagues were also working hard. Adrien, I've already contacted Senior Lee. He said he'd find someone to help investigate. I've reported it to the Institute. They said they've already assigned people to investigate. I've also spoken with the liaison personnel. They've arranged manpower to investigate too. After confirming everyone was doing their part, applying pressure, Adrien looked back at his screen and saw those 8 words. In that instant, his pupils constricted slightly, as if an invisible hand had clenched his heart. A colleague beside him called out several times before Adrien snapped back to reality. "What is it?" Chapter 39, the person calling him was one of the male colleagues who had also been at the restaurant, solely focused on redeeming himself quickly. Seeing Adrien like this, he assumed Adrien was troubled by the project being slandered and didn't dare ask further, just quickly reported. "Adrien, rest assured, the liaison side said they have already reported it to the police and asked lawyers to investigate." Adrien lowered his gaze slightly, then closed his laptop screen. "You continue coordinating. I'm going to see the professor." The others looked at Adrien's departing back, puzzled. Someone asked, "What's wrong with Adrien?" Someone else guessed, "He must be angry." This incident not only slanders Miss Fletcher and smears our project, but also tarnishes Adrien's and Professor Albright's image. A female colleague added indignantly, "How did someone like Howard Wallace even get into the candidate pool in the first place?" The others exchanged glances, smiling wryly. Academic qualifications and resumes can screen for talent, but not for scumbags. Adrien strode quickly and soon stopped outside an office door. Knock, knock, the sound echoed. "Come in," a slightly aged voice came from inside. Adrien entered. The person inside looked up. It was indeed Professor Albright, the project lead. Professor Albright was surprised to see Adrien. "It's you, Adrien. Is there a problem with the project?" "It's related to this morning's news. There are some matters I need to report to you," Adrien said gravely. Hearing Adrien mention this, Professor Albright also put down his work, his brow furrowing. "When screening people in the future, we really need to be more careful. Allowing someone like this, full of envy and jealousy, to get onto our candidate list is itself a problem." Adrien didn't deny Professor Albright's statement. After speaking, Professor Albright looked at Adrien again. "What did you want to say?" Adrien stated the idea he had formulated on the way, his voice deep. "This incident not only affects the project's reputation and Seraphina's reputation, but also harms your reputation and mine, Professor. I've decided to have the Thorne family lawyers step in as well, to investigate under the grounds of defamation against me." Hearing Adrien say this, Professor Albright looked at him with surprise for a moment. "Adrien, I remember you strongly disliked involving the Thorne family in your research." Professor Albright tentatively probed. Adrien nodded slightly. "In research, naturally, there will be no connection with the Thorne family. But regarding personal reputation, doesn't damaging my reputation also damage the Thorne family's reputation?" Hearing him put it this way, Professor Albright instantly understood his thinking and shook his head helplessly. "If you're willing, then go ahead." Thinking for a moment, he added, "Have you comforted your junior colleague?" Hearing the professor mention Seraphina, Adrien's expression softened slightly. "I have already sent a message to Seraphina on behalf of the entire project team, expressing apologies. After the matter is resolved, we still need to formally apologize to Seraphina in a public setting, preferably expressing apologies on our official accounts as well." Hearing Adrien say this, Professor Albright pondered for a moment, then nodded. "All right, ultimately, our project team didn't handle this well." Saying this, he asked Adrien again, "Have you found out where Howard Wallace got the information?" Chapter 40, when the news broke this morning, everyone else was shocked that Howard dared pull such a stunt using the internet to force their hand, slander their project, and delay its progress. But it was Adrien who first realized. How did he confirm that Seraphina was the last member of our team? When this was brought up in the meeting, the entire room fell silent. The colleagues who went with him yesterday were the first to deny it. "It wasn't us. We didn't say who the last person was, nor did we discuss anything related to that." While this information wasn't top secret, it wasn't something to be casually disclosed either. They certainly wouldn't tell Howard, who had already been eliminated. Additionally, it was partly to protect Howard's dignity, not wanting to talk about success in front of someone who failed. The two female colleagues were even more direct. "Since Howard was eliminated, yesterday was the first time we met, and we only went because they invited us." The male researchers mentioned now also looked troubled. Facing the dual gazes of Professor Albright and Adrien, they spoke awkwardly. "Howard said we'd be going abroad soon, no telling how long before we return. He thought we should gather once more before leaving, also to taste our local cuisine." We figured we'd still have contact after returning, so they invited everyone over. If they had known Howard would cause such a scene, they wouldn't have gone, even if beaten to death. Adrien listened intently as they finished, then posed a new question. Was yesterday's location chosen by Howard in advance? Adrien was also very curious about this. Seraphina chose that place, and even he only found out shortly before arriving at the restaurant. How did Howard know they would be there? Speaking of this, the group instantly regained some energy. We found that place by browsing our phones just then. We wanted to find some less famous but delicious restaurants. We happened to see this one online. Howard didn't choose it. Then who chose it? Adrien's voice carried a faint sense of pressure. The group frowned, thinking, now wasn't the time to worry about being treated as suspects. If they didn't identify the potential informant among them, the risks abroad would be even greater. Even if it turned out there was no informant internally, clearing everyone's suspicion would increase mutual trust. After repeated confirmation by the group, they found that yesterday's choice was made among several restaurants. The final choice, this restaurant, wasn't even Howard's pick. And their reason for choosing this restaurant was simple. We heard about this restaurant when we went to the pharmaceutical base before. Seeing it now, we just thought we'd check it out. After confirming there was no issue with the restaurant choice, Adrien posed another question. Yesterday, did he show any particular behavior towards any of you? The group looked over puzzled. Facing their confusion, Adrien spoke calmly. If he wasn't targeting me and Seraphina, then who was he targeting? If encountering them was purely accidental, it meant he originally had other plans. And judging by Howard's current actions, it didn't seem like he purely wanted a gathering. Being pointed out by Adrien, a chill ran down the spines of the group. They thought hard but found no answer. Ultimately, they could only awkwardly conclude, maybe he didn't get a chance to do anything before running into you too, Adrien. For a moment, the group even felt a slight sense of relief. If they hadn't run into Adrien, who knows which one of them might have been harmed by Howard. But the next second, they felt such thoughts were inappropriate and couldn't help but lower their heads again. The matter seemed to have reached an impasse. Chapter 40, Howard had a purpose in inviting them, but going to that specific place was unintentional, yet Howard somehow knew Seraphina's identity. Now, hearing Professor Albright's inquiry, Adrien could only shake his head gently. Currently, there are no clues. Seraphina joining their team wasn't classified information, but not everyone could know either. That Howard knew might not seem surprising, but someone being willing to tell him this was itself a hidden danger. Seeing even Adrien had no answers, Professor Albright couldn't help rubbing his temples. I was thinking we could head abroad once the handover here was complete. Didn't expect this mess to pop up suddenly. Hearing him say this, Adrien offered no comfort, instead stating, this might just be an isolated incident, or it could just be the beginning. Hearing this sentence, Professor Albright felt his headache worsen. He couldn't help glaring at him. Can't you say something nice, comfort me a little? Adrien, however, wasn't buying it. Rather than constructing a false reality now, it's better to prepare for rainy days. Otherwise, if these people truly delay our schedule, the consequences will be genuinely severe. Professor Albright waved his hand helplessly. I'll also make some calls and ask people to investigate. No matter what, their project wasn't one that could be easily manipulated. Anyone wanting to target them needed to think twice. Having gotten the answer he wanted, Adrien simply nodded lightly. Then I'll trouble you, Professor. I'm going to contact the lawyer. Go ahead. Chinese letter, conveniently things are relatively quiet now. Let them follow up on this matter, settle their minds, and also foster a sense of belonging. Adrien nodded slightly in agreement, walked out of the room, and went to contact the lawyer. Someone wants to damage the Thorne family's reputation. Go to the news. Seraphina didn't know Adrien had already done so much. After a lunch break, she read for a while longer. Curiosity eventually got the better of her, and she wanted to check the news. Remembering what Adrien had said earlier about not letting these people affect her mood, she thought for a moment and opened a relatively authoritative media account. This media outlet was controversial because it would delete some negative comments. This naturally protected the people in the news, but similarly, sometimes the people in the news weren't good. Hence, public opinion on this media was mixed. Seraphina clicked on the content and saw it was Professor Albright's announcement. Professor Albright's response didn't focus on Seraphina joining the project, but directly stated that someone was trying to sabotage their project, attempting to bring down both the professor and the team leader with a single rumor. Their project condemned this act, reserved the right to pursue legal action, and later attached a lawyer's letter in the comment section. Seeing 2 lawyer letters, Seraphina clicked open curiously, only to find one was from the project's lawyer and the other was from the Thorne family's legal team. Seraphina suddenly realized this must be from Adrien's side. Scrolling down further, the comments varied. Some suggested letting things play out. Some felt such a large project wouldn't do things so obviously if they really wanted to hide something. Of course, many more were various forms of insinuation and doubt, stating that the academic circle had also become a place of fame and fortune. But fortunately, this media outlet deleted comments, so those potentially very vulgar ones were gone. Just seeing people in the comments section constantly clamoring about daring to delete comments indicated there must have been some foul language earlier. Taking one last look, Seraphina was about to put her phone down when a new news alert popped up. Shocking, Professor Albright's project's final female researcher actually had no contact with the field for 5 years. Chapter 42, seeing such a pointed headline. Seraphina's finger paused slightly before she clicked into it. Seraphina hadn't followed this account before, but seeing it had several million followers indicated it was a major independent media account. And this article, besides the eye-catching title, stated directly at the beginning, "The academic circle is trending too." However, what's completely unexpected is that this female researcher, just praised by Professor Albright this morning, had actually been a housewife for the previous 5 years. Just a few short sentences subtly shifted the topic and completely diverted the reader's line of thought. The article wasn't long. The main body below stated, according to information obtained by this editor from insiders, this female researcher, just supported by numerous researchers this morning and the last member of Professor Albright's team, had actually ceased all academic activities after graduation and had been a housewife. Her rejoining the project, this time, is suspected to be due to marital problems. It even stated at the end that this news was a fan submission and that if the information was incorrect, they could be contacted for infringement removal. Lowering her gaze to the final disclaimer, her finger slid slightly down, revealing numerous comments that had already appeared. So that's how it is. I knew it. Anything that trends, can it be ordinary? It must be that an ordinary person wanted to join the project but got intercepted, had no choice but to blow it up. I said earlier, don't rush to take sides. Academic cliques exist abroad, don't they exist in our country too? Where are those who cursed the whistleblower this morning? Why aren't you showing up now? Got slapped in the face by your idol, huh? The sheer speed and variety of comments appearing in the section were so rapid and covered such a range that Seraphina's first reaction could only be, who exactly hired trolls? Yes, if it were just an ordinary exposé article, perhaps many people would comment immediately, expressing their views. However, their comments would usually be subjective and particularly related to the article itself. But the comments on this article didn't fixate on her having been a so-called housewife for 5 years, nor did they delve deeply into or angrily condemn the title's claim of 5 years without contact with the field. Instead, they comprehensively covered all possible points for negative commentary. This forced her to be suspicious. Her finger moved slightly, sharing the article. Adrien, it seems they've started again. This time, it seems to be targeting only me. As Seraphina typed this line, she didn't know what she was thinking. By the time she realized it, these words had already been sent. The other side quickly showed typing. Seraphina's fingers curled slightly, clenching, her gaze fixed intently on the screen, seemingly waiting for some result. The next moment, the first message arrived. Seraphina, why are you reading the news? We will naturally handle these matters. Seraphina doesn't need to worry. After 2 consecutive comforting messages, the typing indicator lasted even longer. Seraphina looked at the screen, her eyes somewhat dim. After saying this, Adrien probably doesn't know what else to say either. Chapter 43, from an adult perspective, at this moment, she should take the initiative to offer an out. but for some reason, her hand rested on the keyboard, yet remained motionless. Finally, another message arrived from the other side, an exceptionally long passage of text. Seraphina need not worry. This news will only help us find out more conveniently, and quickly, who exactly is behind the scenes trying to cause trouble. As for the content of the article, does Seraphina truly believe that these past 5 years, you were merely being a housewife? Reading this, Seraphina couldn't help but question herself inwardly. These 5 years, was I really just being a housewife? Not really. While at Julian's place, she didn't need to manage household changes. Or rather, even if she offered her opinion, it was rarely adopted, unless her suggestion reached the butler before he reported to Julian. But often, even when Julian found their ideas aligned, he would still make changes afterward. She hadn't even done well as a housewife. She lowered her gaze and continued reading the subsequent message. Does Seraphina think Professor Albright chose you just because he knew you from before? Don't you understand the professor's temperament? If Seraphina hadn't passed his test, if he hadn't confirmed that you hadn't abandoned the knowledge you learned over the years, nor stopped absorbing new knowledge, how could he possibly have agreed to let you join this project team? It was a very, very long passage, so long that Seraphina felt her eyes sting as she read, her vision gradually blurring, yet a smile couldn't help but appear on her lips. Adrien probably only types this much. He likely wouldn't speak this much normally. She closed her eyes briefly, massaging them upwards for a moment, then looked back at the screen. The latest message had arrived. Seraphina, don't doubt your own abilities, nor Professor Albright's selection standards. It's not like no one tried to get in through connections before, but look at our team, Seraphina, does anyone look like they got in through connections? Reading this, Seraphina couldn't help smiling. Maybe in their eyes, I am the one who got in through connections. The typing, on the other side, displayed for a long time again. Just as Seraphina thought Adrien was about to send another very long text, only one sentence came through. Then does Seraphina think I look like I got in through connections? If it really were about connections, wouldn't I seem more like the one who got in through connections? After all, according to the opinions in that news article's comment section, the more powerful and influential the family, the easier it is to get in through connections. In that case, Adrien felt he might be the more likely candidate for using connections. Seraphina couldn't help laughing out loud. Adrien certainly didn't get in through connections, and neither did I. We are both future core members of the team. This sentence sounded like a joke, but Adrien somehow sensed her brimming fighting spirit and replied firmly. Hello, future core member Seraphina. Putting down the phone, he looked again at the various liaison personnel from his junior colleagues' teams. They had all gathered in this conference room earlier. He had immediately forwarded the message Seraphina sent him to the group chat handling this matter. Now, everyone's expression was somewhat grave. Adrien, they must have targeted our project team long ago, right? One of the newly arrived liaison personnel frowned and spoke. This clearly isn't targeted at us. Chapter 44. Initially, they had come because this matter involved the project team, and they were responsible for the project team. But now, this new piece of news was clearly aimed at that female researcher. After these words were spoken, the room fell silent. This person's meaning was also clear. This was clearly aimed at that female researcher. Why should they be responsible for resolving it? Adrien glanced at him calmly, then turned to the others. Do you all think the same way? The newly arrived liaison personnel exchanged glances, remaining silent. The original colleagues, however, had their own views. No matter how you look at it, this matter started with Howard Wallace. If it weren't for Howard, no one would specifically dig up information about researcher Fletcher. Yeah, speaking of which, our project actually implicated her, publicizing the matter. Now they can publish researcher Fletcher's information. Who knows if they'll deliberately smear her later and then link it back to Professor Albright and Adrien. Exactly, isn't the purpose of publishing this news still to prove Professor Albright showed favoritism and Adrien pulled strings? Isn't that still targeting our project team? The liaison personnel from various parties were somewhat surprised. They hadn't expected this seemingly unremarkable team to be so united. In their line of work, encountering such situations, even if not spoken aloud, they would definitely grumble inwardly about the bad luck. After everyone had expressed their stance, Adrien finally spoke. The cause of this incident is our project. Someone wanted a spot on our project. Do you remember this? Everyone nodded. That was natural. Seeing them all nod, Adrien continued, you yourselves should be clear about the importance of this project. This time it targeted researcher Fletcher. Next time, who knows who it will target? Are we going to let them handle it themselves every time? Should researchers spend all their time dealing with these various rumors and slanders? Adrien's voice wasn't heavy, merely stating facts simply, yet everyone present was momentarily speechless. Indeed, Adrien was right. This project was destined not to be smooth sailing, and external speculations, slanders, and rumors about them certainly wouldn't end here. Were they supposed to handle it all themselves in the future? Who doesn't have family troubles? The liaison personnel exchanged glances, lowered their heads, and said no more. Adrien, however, didn't let them off. Before assuming your positions, you should have known what needed to be done. In the future, our team will be abroad. Domestic matters will require your initial handling. Situations like this will certainly occur more than once. If any of you feel you cannot handle it, you can raise it now. As soon as these words were spoken, those who had lowered their heads quickly raised them, hurrying to state their position. What is Adrien saying? We will definitely take good care of this project. Exactly, Adrien, you all rest assured. If anyone dares to pull stunts in the future, just leave it to us. We absolutely won't let them succeed. Are you kidding? Did they think joining this project was just some task handed down from heaven? The resume boost from participating in such a large-scale project, not to mention potential job hopping, but even for promotions and salary increases later, was a huge advantage. Seeing everyone had stated their position, Adrien finally said, have you found out who leaked the information about researcher Fletcher? Everyone looked at each other. One person, under the collective gaze, spoke with difficulty, there's someone in our group. When they received the personnel list earlier, seeing the last researcher, Fletcher, was female, they said a few extra words. As for what extra words were said, it went without saying. Everyone present understood it was basically the same rhetoric as Howard Wallace's. Adrien nodded. Submit the list of documents. The police station should also be ready by now. Chapter 45. The person who stood up quickly said, Adrien, this matter. The plea for leniency died in their throat under Adrien's indifferent gaze. Adrien, however, didn't let him off. He turned to another female researcher nearby. Note down his name. I will report back to Professor Albright later and suggest to their group liaison that they replace him. The person didn't expect that just wanting to casually plead for mercy and gain favor would so quickly cost them their job. They became agitated. Isn't this normal? Anyone would think that way. The female researcher beside him looked over with disgust. Your colleague's main issue is leaking project content suspected of criminal activity. And you don't see a problem with him leaking this information, but instead plead for him. What? Do you think your face is so big that Adrien and the professor will make an exception for you? Such people weren't non-existent. Some always felt they could gain favor just by saying a word, thinking it was a good deal. They completely failed to consider what their words truly represented. With this example made, the other managers dared not say anything more, just obediently noted down Adrien's requirements. The Thorne family legal team has stepped in. There should be results soon. Saying this, Adrien paused, his gaze sweeping over everyone present. If possible, I hope our project's own team can uncover the truth before the external team does. Otherwise, when reporting at the end, I imagine you will be even more reluctant than I am to face that scenario. Hearing this sentence, everyone present couldn't help but shiver. If, during the project report, the leadership learned they were outpaced by an external team that joined later in finding information, forget promotions and raises, avoiding disciplinary action would be fortunate. Seeing that everyone felt a sense of urgency, Adrien didn't look at them further, just opened Seraphina's chat window again. Regarding this matter, does Seraphina have any leads? He hadn't let Seraphina look earlier because he didn't want her to see these upsetting things. Since she had already seen them, she also had the right to handle her own affairs. Seraphina somehow inexplicably understood this. She immediately typed seriously back. Many people connected to the Harrington family know I was a full-time housewife. Few people connected to the Harrington family should know I joined the project. However, After the trending topic this morning, those relatively close to me should be able to figure out who the news is about. This closeness didn't refer to emotional intimacy, but to being very familiar with her life. Undoubtedly, the three Fletchers and Julian were highly suspicious. Adrien replied with, "Received. I will suggest they investigate from this direction." Seeing his reply, Seraphina didn't say anything more like, "Sorry for causing the project to handle extra matters due to my personal issues," but instead expressed her gratitude seriously. "Thank you, Adrien, for helping us eliminate worries from the rear. No need to thank me. This is what we should do. It's good that it came out now. Many hidden dangers can be resolved in advance. If you don't want to look at the previous materials anymore, you can also search for various gossip online." The industry had not only cutting-edge information, but also various ambiguous rumors. Although 99 were false, the remaining one might contain 30 truth. Adrien thought Seraphina hadn't had much entertainment before. Looking at these might be good too. "Okay, thank you, Adrien." Chapter 46, putting down her phone, Seraphina looked at the message Adrien had just sent, her brow furrowing. If they relied solely on Adrien and his team to find evidence, it would naturally be possible. But obtaining concrete proof would likely not be easy. She glanced again at the previous news article. The comment section was already flooded, with the highest liked comment having even more likes than the article itself. Looking at the bustling comment section, Seraphina became even more certain that someone was trying to stir up trouble. After thinking for a moment, Seraphina dialed Chloe's number. Chloe answered Seraphina's call, her voice as high-pitched as ever. "Sera, I just saw the news. Which bastard is deliberately smearing you outside again?" Such a large volume of comments in a short time, and so focused in discussion, was clearly abnormal. Hearing her friend's concern, Seraphina thought for a moment and decided to tell her truthfully. "I suspect the Fletchers are behind this, and I'm basically certain it's them." Hearing Seraphina say this, Chloe sounded puzzled on the other end. "Are the Fletchers that brainless? This matter concerns your project. Such an important project would definitely have public opinion monitoring later on. Especially at the beginning of the project, what nerve did the Fletchers have to do something like this?" Hearing the doubt in her voice, Seraphina also felt speechless. Perhaps in the past, she wouldn't have imagined the Fletchers would act this way either. Now, hearing Chloe say this, she could only reply, "The Fletchers have always seemed rather unintelligent." Chloe paused on the other end, then quickly nodded in agreement. Indeed, they've never been very smart. If they were truly smart, they wouldn't have seen how fake Liliana was yet still favored only her. Thinking of this, Chloe felt very angry. Back then, she almost thought Seraphina was an adopted child, even concocting a whole drama about real and fake heiresses in her head, only to find out they were actually biological sisters. She really couldn't understand how, despite being family, the Fletchers could still divide ranks within the home and in such a malicious way. Hearing her say this, Seraphina lowered her gaze slightly. The Fletchers' way of thinking had never been understandable to ordinary people. If ordinary people could understand what the Fletchers were thinking, then perhaps they wouldn't be considered ordinary people either. After listening to Chloe vent for a while, Seraphina stated her idea, "I want to probe the Fletchers for information." Hearing Seraphina say this, Chloe stopped her previous topic, also feeling troubled. The Fletchers act without thinking, but they probably wouldn't be so brainless as to tell you about this, right? Otherwise, from the moment she suspected them, she would have asked Seraphina to go to the Fletchers and try to get information. Hearing Chloe say this, Seraphina thought carefully, slowly voicing her idea, "I was thinking of directly confronting Liliana. Liliana definitely won't admit she did it." Saying this, Seraphina sneered. "If Liliana wants to do this, she will definitely drag others down with her." After all, Liliana might seem unintelligent, but she wasn't stupid. This matter involved an important project. Liliana couldn't possibly bear all the responsibility herself. Chapter 47, just looking at how Liliana was still pretending to have leukemia, showed what she was worried about. She was probably also worried about being abandoned by the family. If that's the case, then couldn't this point be exploited? Hearing Seraphina's words, Chloe also began to ponder. Then we need to find a time when they are all present. Otherwise, with only one or two people, it won't be easy to extract information. After discussing for a while, Seraphina prepared to go out. Before leaving, she thought for a moment and still sent Adrien a message. Adrien, I'm going out for dinner with my best friend tonight. Adrien doesn't need to worry. I'm doing fine over here. Adrien had just come downstairs from upstairs, preparing to leave, when he received this message. After hesitating for a moment, he still replied directly, Do you need me to arrange anything? People outside might not know Seraphina's appearance now, but they couldn't rule out the possibility that the whistleblower might do something else later. So far, they hadn't revealed Seraphina's appearance, perhaps for other purposes, but they couldn't ignore this potential risk. Lowering her gaze to the message Adrien sent, Seraphina thought for a moment, I'll just wear a mask. Moreover, Seraphina looked at her current outfit. Unless they come to identify me themselves, based on the information they prepared, ordinary people probably wouldn't associate it with me. Her current attire was vastly different from when she was at the Harrington house. Earlier, when looking at her own photos, she felt a sense Chinese letter sudden realization. Were the photos left at the Harrington house really so different from now? Perhaps only after escaping that environment could one discover that the photos left at the Harrington house showed her entire facial expression and temperament were quite gloomy. Seeing Seraphina insist, Adrien didn't say more. Only Chinese letter reminded her again at the end, If anything happens, you can call me directly. After earnestly thanking Adrien for his kindness, Seraphina picked up her bag and went out. In the hotel lobby, she made a call. Hello. Yes, I'm heading to the Minged Hotel later. Okay, then let's have dinner there tonight. After speaking, Seraphina lingered in the lobby for a moment, eyes fixed on her phone screen, fingers occasionally swiping. After a long while, she finally let out a breath, put on her mask, and exited the hotel. Arriving at Minged restaurant, Seraphina didn't go in directly, but waited at the entrance for a moment. Only upon seeing Chloe did a smile appear on her face. Chloe saw Seraphina, first sized her up carefully, then nodded affirmingly. Your spirit and energy now are very different from before. Hearing her say this, Seraphina couldn't help but agree. This afternoon, when I looked at my own photos, I could hardly believe the person in the photo was me. Now that you've finally escaped them, just consider these past 5 years as having your eyes clouded by paste. Chloe also felt very sorry for her. She had tried to persuade Seraphina before, but unfortunately, although Seraphina listened earnestly, she didn't truly leave the Fletchers or Julian. Fortunately, they had known each other for many years. Chloe knew Seraphina wasn't purely love-struck, nor would she use her advice to break up as leverage to please a man or extract promises. Thinking of this, Chloe couldn't help laughing. You don't know, these past 5 years, watching news about love-struck people, I worried about you one moment and worried about myself the next. Seraphina knew she was joking and couldn't help smiling too. Then you won't have to worry about me anymore. Chloe didn't think so. I'll have to worry about you even more in the future. When you go abroad, unfamiliar place, unfamiliar people. Chapter 48. They walked into the hotel laughing. Chloe gave the reservation name directly, and under the waiter's guidance, they went to the private room. After reaching the room and waiting for the waiter to leave, Chloe finally asked, They should have gotten the message, right? Seraphina nodded. Liliana would definitely bribe someone at my hotel to keep an eye on me. I deliberately lingered in the hotel lobby for a while. I already have 2 suspects. Chloe rubbed her temples, finding humor amidst the trouble. Thinking positively, maybe both of those people are watching you. Seraphina was amused and couldn't help but agree. That's indeed possible. Chloe glared at her. They looked at each other and couldn't help laughing again. After laughing, Chloe became serious. Honestly, knowing you're going abroad soon, my heart is finally at ease. The way you were before, I suspected you might suddenly become a regular patient of a psychologist someday. Chloe was being diplomatic. She had actually worried that one day she might suddenly hear news about Seraphina from someone else. Seraphina didn't miss the concern in Chloe's eyes and couldn't help walking over to hug her. Thank you. These years, she wasn't completely isolated. She had seen news herself, naturally knowing many people say to run away quickly when encountering someone love-struck. She had also seen many women harmed because their friends were love-struck, and they tried to persuade them to break up. Although she knew herself very well, she couldn't possibly be untouched by Chloe not giving up on her. Chloe paused slightly after being hugged, then stood up and gave her a big hug back. Come on, what's between us? Saying this, she couldn't resist joking again. I believe, even if you finally couldn't take it anymore and decided to take that scumbag down with you, you wouldn't implicate me. Liliana. They both understood each other's character thoroughly, so they could be sure they wouldn't harm each other. And Seraphina had never disappointed Chloe. The Fletchers and Julian didn't even have much impression of her. Returning to her seat, Chloe still couldn't help complaining. Some young girls around me encounter similar situations and ask for advice. I always say, if you're not absolutely sure, then try to keep your distance. Or try not to meet love-struck people in non-public places. If you live alone, don't give them your detailed address, and definitely don't give them keys or anything. As she spoke, Chloe felt like she was developing split personalities. Seraphina, however, nodded very approvingly. Girls should prioritize their own safety above all else. Some things, persuading once or twice is enough. Absolutely don't try a third time. After chatting some more, Seraphina's sharp ears caught sounds coming from outside the door. She had deliberately left the door slightly ajar earlier. Now she looked towards Chloe. Chloe looked back at her. They're here. Continuing their conversation nonchalantly, Seraphina and Chloe simultaneously reached into their bags, exchanged glances, and couldn't help laughing again. Bang, the door was pushed open. Fortunately, Minged Restaurant had deliberately left a large space next to the door, empty of tables, chairs, or anything else. Seraphina and Chloe composed their smiles and looked at the three people who entered: Elena, Liliana, and Julian. Seeing the smile on Seraphina's face, Elena immediately voiced her disdain. Your reputation is already rotten, yet you still have the nerve to smile. If I were you, I'd be so ashamed I'd find a hole to crawl into. Chapter 49. Chloe's face instantly turned cold. Such a person, such words. She wouldn't have doubted Seraphina was the daughter of Elena's enemy if she didn't know better. She didn't hold back either. That's a strange thing to say. Did you do something to wrong your husband? Otherwise, why would you need to crawl into a mouse hole just because of some rumors outside? Elena's face stiffened. She immediately looked over with disgust. I'm talking to Seraphina Fletcher. Who are you? This is our family matter. If you have nothing better to do, hurry up and leave. Her words carried a condescending tone of charity, as if letting her go so easily was some kind of great favor. Chloe found it amusing, sat back down in her chair, crossed her arms, and looked the three up and down, then turned to Seraphina. You really need to go get some cleansing rituals later, get rid of this bad luck, so you don't attract more misfortune in the future. The faces of the three opposite instantly turned cold. Julian looked impatiently at Seraphina. Are you sure you want to keep an outsider here? Seraphina glanced at him calmly. Outsider? Who exactly is the outsider? Julian seemed provoked by her words. I am your husband, Seraphina replied coolly. Oh, then added, if you're willing to go get the marriage certificate with me right now, then you won't have to suffer being my husband anymore. Julian instantly flared up. Liliana's eyes flashed with dissatisfaction. She gently pulled Julian's sleeve. Julian, don't be angry. Sister is just joking with you. Besides, the Civil Affairs Bureau isn't open at this time. Her words seemed persuasive, but were laden with hidden meaning. Julian instantly reined in his anger, looking at Seraphina as if granting a favor. I know, you're just daring to mention divorce now because you know the Civil Affairs Bureau isn't open, right? Saying this, he spoke again as if bestowing a gift. Quickly withdraw from that project, obediently go rest for a couple of days, donate bone marrow to Lily, and I can still let you remain the lady of the Harrington house. Hearing his words, Seraphina felt no emotional fluctuation at all, only watched Liliana with amusement. Liliana's intentions she had roughly figured out. Sure enough, she saw a fleeting look of annoyance and dissatisfaction cross Liliana's face. Seraphina couldn't help but inwardly tusk. Wanting the status of Mrs. Harrington on one hand, yet having to display her kindness on the other. And even more, because of the illness she fabricated, the position she desires is being used by Julian as compensation for treating her illness. Satisfied after observing the changes in their expressions, Seraphina looked back at the three, her gaze focusing particularly on Liliana. You should have all seen the news online. Elena immediately spoke first. Of course, we saw it. Our Fletcher family has never suffered such a huge scandal. Saying this, full of impatience, hurry up and say you're quitting that project. People online won't say anything more then. Seraphina watched her quietly, a sudden smile appearing on her lips. Is that so? You really think if I quit the project, the online comments will just disappear? Did Alina herself believe that? Quitting the project now, people online would only think she was guilty, think someone found real evidence, so she was kicked out. Meeting Seraphina's gaze, Alina's heart skipped a beat. She quickly yelled back even louder. If you don't quit, what are you planning to stay for? To bring even greater scandal to our Fletcher family? Chapter 50, remembering the subtle inquiries she heard from the family earlier, Alina felt very annoyed. Their Fletcher family had always enjoyed an excellent reputation. When had they ever experienced such humiliation? She initially thought this daughter was just a transparent placeholder for the position of Mrs. Harrington, easily manipulated by herself or Julian. She never expected her to dare use tactics to pressure them. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but sneer again. Such tactics, anyone whose family had provided even minimal guidance wouldn't employ. Using one's own reputation to force others to agree that was truly the stupidest thing. As she thought this, she completely forgot whether she had ever taught Seraphina anything. Liliana chimed in beside her, coaxingly, "Sister, I know you resent Mom. You feel Mom likes me more. But Mom is your mother too, she loves you very much. You can't misunderstand Mom's good intentions like this." Hearing her repeatedly say, "Mom," yet with a hidden trace of smugness in her voice, Seraphina gave her a cool glance. "Is that so? Then please trouble yourself to give me an example. Let's see where this good mother you speak of has been good to me." Hearing this, Liliana was about to open her mouth to give examples, but suddenly stopped. She could list countless examples of Alina being good to her, but when it came to Alina being good to Seraphina, even she, adept at talking, found it difficult to think of any at the moment. For a time, she hesitated. "Sister, Mom being good to you certainly wouldn't be too obvious. Aren't you making things difficult for me?" Before Seraphina could scoff, Julian frowned and stepped forward first. "All right, stop being unreasonable here. Regarding the online exposure this time, I can pretend it didn't happen, have someone completely suppress this news. Now, quickly tell those people from your project that you're quitting." Chloe, who had been watching Seraphina dominate the scene, couldn't help but Chinese letter roast comment sarcastically at this point. Truly worthy of a capitalist, it's so late, yet still thinking of calling people up to work. Julian's face darkened further. "I said, hurry up and quit this project. Do you really want outsiders to continue damaging our family's reputation?" Seraphina calmly leaned back, looked at him, then glanced towards Liliana. "I said, as long as certain people don't go around spreading nonsense, no one will know." Saying this, she adopted a thoughtful expression. "Speaking of which, I am somewhat curious. Who exactly leaked the fact that I was a housewife for 5 years?" Julian replied dismissively without thinking, "The fact that you were a housewife isn't exactly a secret. Plenty of people know." "Is that so?" Seraphina watched him leisurely. "Then who could guess that the last researcher mentioned in that project was me?" Julian opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but found he didn't know the answer either. Yes, who could know that the person exposed was Seraphina? Even when the news about the 5 years as a housewife came out, he initially hadn't connected it to Seraphina. Who could know it was Seraphina among those previously just said to be joining a project? However, Julian was unwilling to admit his mistake and immediately said, "Your participation in this project isn't exactly classified within your project team. Could it be that no one knew?" Chloe sneered from the side. "Mr. Harrington should have participated in some government projects too, right? Could it be that in the government projects Mr. Harrington participated in, personnel lists could be casually told to others, even posted online? Or perhaps, the projects Mr. Harrington participated in could all undergo background checks one by one?" After saying this, she found it even more amusing. Is the Harrington family's security level this low? Someone investigates casually and finds out so much information. Julian's face grew increasingly dark. "This matter, I will definitely have someone investigate thoroughly." Disliking Seraphina going out and causing trouble for his family was one thing, but someone daring to use their Harrington family as a stepping stone was entirely another. Seraphina looked up at him, her gaze shifting towards his side. Then perhaps Mr. Harrington should start the investigation with the people around you.